Chapter 3177. Yuan's spirit-concealing pill. Both Mei Su and Jiang Ye's souls were on the verge of collapsing. The 8 scenery soul-condensing divine pills that Zhuo Wen had given them just now was merely to stabilize their souls. However, it would be difficult to rely on the 8 scenery soul-consolidating divine pills to recover their souls. Zhuo Wen knew that Mei Su and Jiang Yi could only recover by consuming divine pills that were of the heaven level and divine pills. Divine pills of the creation level would not have much effect on their souls. Zhuo Wen took out the true record of pill arrays and began to flip through the divine pills section. Soon, he found a heaven-level divine pill called the Yuan spirit-concealing pill. It was said that as long as one's soul was not destroyed, no matter how serious the soul was, it could recover in a short time. However, Zhuo Wen did not have the heavenly-grade unity spirit grass that was required to refine the first origin concealing spirit treasure pill. As for the other supplementary herbs, Zhuo Wen had most of them. After opening the door, Zhuo Wen saw Mei Ying, great guardianing Jia, and the lakeside alchemist waiting outside the door. Mei Ying's eyes lit up when he saw Zhuo Wen. He rushed to Zhuo Wen and asked anxiously, "Celestial Master Zhua, how are Mei Ying and Jiang Yi?" "City Governor Mei Ying, don't worry. I have removed the soul-devouring parasitic worms from Miss Mei Su and Uncle Zhang's souls. However, their souls were severely damaged by the soul-devouring parasitic worms, and they are still in a coma," Zhuo Wen said calmly. Mei Ying quickly thanked Zhuo Wen and asked, "Celestial Master Zhua, when will Mei Su and Jiang Yi wake up?" In Mei Ying's opinion, since the soul-devouring parasitic worms had been removed, Mei Su and Jiang Ye's lives were no longer in danger. Unfortunately, Zhuo Wen shook his head and said, "Their souls were severely damaged. I'm afraid it won't be easy for them to wake up." Mei Ying was stunned and asked, "Celestial Master, Zhua, what do you mean?" The soul-devouring parasite had been eliminated, so why was it so difficult for them to wake up? Didn't you take out a divine pill just now? After swallowing it, they looked much better. Zhuo Wen smiled bitterly. "City Lord Mei Ying, that divine pill is the 8 sceneries soul-condensing divine pill, a destination-grade divine pill that specializes in restoring a cultivator's soul. But just now, I discovered that the 8 sceneries soul-condensing divine pill had little effect on Miss Mei Su and the others' damaged souls. If you want to wake them up, you'll need a heaven-piercing divine pill." Mei Ying was stunned. Her body trembled, and she couldn't help but mumble to herself, "Celestial divine pellet? How was this possible? In the entire Massacre Heavenly region, there isn't an earth alchemist of this level." Alchemist Lin Hu was standing not far behind Mei Ying. He lowered his head and didn't dare to look at Zhuo Wen. After learning of Zhuo Wen's identity, Alchemist Lin Hu swore in his heart that he would never dare to talk nonsense about Zhuo Wen again unless he was courting death. "I have the recipe for a divine pill called the Spirit-Concealing Divine Pill. This divine pill is a heaven-piercing divine pill that specializes in restoring souls. However, I'm still missing the main ingredient, the Unity Spiritual Grass. As long as I can get the Unity Spiritual Grass, I'll be able to refine the Spirit-Concealing Divine Pill. By then, it'll be easy to save Miss Mei Su and the others." Zhuo Wen's voice was calm, and there was a hint of helplessness in his tone. His alchemy skills had already reached the peak of the destination grade. Relying on the quintessence Hong Meng Wuji and the true record of pill arrays, he had a high chance of successfully refining the Spirit-Concealing Divine Pill. Moreover, the Spirit-Concealing Divine Pill was one of the more basic divine pills among the heaven-piercing divine pills. If Zhuo Wen could successfully refine it, his alchemy skills would be able to advance to the heaven-piercing divine pill. However, Zhuowen also knew that a heaven-piercing divine pill like the Unity Spiritual Grass was too rare. Without the main ingredient, he wouldn't even have the chance to refine the spirit-concealing divine pill. Upon hearing this, Mei Ying's beautiful eyes revealed a hint of strangeness. She said softly, "Immortal Master Zhua, the Unity Spiritual Grass you mentioned, is it this divine pill?" As she spoke, Mei Ying took out a brocade box and opened it. Inside lay a palm-sized 7-leaf grass that was covered with complicated patterns. Every leaf of the 7-leaf grass was filled with complicated patterns. A terrifying wave of spiritual energy surged out from the 7-leaf grass, causing a terrifying vision to appear in the sky above Dark Rock City. At the same time, the 7 leaves of the 7-leaf grass gathered in one direction as if they were about to merge into one. There was a huge difference between them and the other leaves. Unity Spiritual Grass. Zhuowen's pupils shrank as he immediately recognized the 7-leaf grass as the Unity Spiritual Grass. City Governor Mei Ying, you actually have a heaven-piercing divine pill. Zhuo Wenjin felt that this was inconceivable. Heaven-connecting spirit herbs were simply too rare, especially this Unity Spirit Grass. In the Xianmi heavenly domain, many heaven-connecting spirit masters did not even have a single stalk of heaven-connecting spirit herb. Zhuowen's luck was too good. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to obtain so many heaven-piercing divine pills. Mei Ying smiled and said, "I obtained the Unity Spiritual Grass when I barged into the Forbidden Area. I obtained a total of 3 Unity Spiritual Grass. However, the Forbidden Area was too dangerous, and I didn't dare to venture too deep. In the end, I could only retreat." Forbidden Area. Zhuowen's eyes lit up. From Mei Ying's words, he could tell that there were many high-quality divine pills in the Forbidden Area. Mei Ying actually obtained 3 Unity Spiritual Grass from there. It could be seen that the Forbidden Area was a land of treasures. However, Zhuowen also knew that misfortune and fortune were interdependent. There were many precious divine pills in the Forbidden Area. Correspondingly, the Forbidden Area was filled with terrifying dangers. There was no doubt about that. Celestial Master Zhua, you said that you can refine a heaven-piercing divine pill like the First Origin Concealing Spirit Pill. Does that mean that you're a heaven-piercing alchemist? Mei Ying's beautiful eyes were filled with radiance. She stared at Zhuowen. Alchemist Lin Hu's body trembled as he looked at Zhuowen in shock. He already knew that Celestial Master Zhua was already a heaven-piercing divine array master. This was already enough to stun him. However, he now received news that this person was actually a heaven-piercing alchemist. This was too unbelievable. Alchemy and array Dao were 2 fields that required a lot of time and energy to cultivate. In order to reach the heaven-piercing level in either of these fields, one had to have the opportunity and talent to do so. Alchemist Lin Hu had never seen a freak who had reached the heaven-piercing level in both fields. He even suspected that there was really someone in this world who could become a heaven-piercing divine array master and alchemist at the same time. However, he had seen it now. Moreover, it was such a young freak. Zhuowen said confidently, "I'm not a heaven-piercing alchemist yet. I'm only at the peak of the creation level. However, I'm confident that I can refine the First Origin Concealing Spirit Pill." Mei Ying and alchemist Lin Hu looked at each other. Although Zhuowen was not a heaven-piercing alchemist, he was only at the peak of the creation level. That was already very impressive. Chapter 3178. Trust Mei Ying looked at the confident young man and gritted her teeth. "Celestial Master Zhua, I'll leave Mei Su and Jiang Ye's recovery to you. I'll give you all 3 stalks of Unity Spiritual Grass to refine the Spirit Concealing Pill." Zhuowen looked at Mei Ying in surprise. "City Lord Mei Ying, are you that confident in my alchemy skills?" No, I just believe in you. A person who can rely on himself to reach the ascending heaven grade in the array Tao is definitely a peerless genius. I'm sure you won't be any weaker than the array Tao in the land of alchemy. Of course, there's another reason. You're the highest-ranked Earth alchemist in the Massacre Heavenly region. If you can't save Mei Su and Jiang Yi, I really can't think of anyone else who can. Mei Ying glanced at Lin, who, she was glad that Zhuo Wen had insisted on coming over to check on Mei Su and Jiang Yi. Otherwise, alchemist Lin, who would have delayed their treatment. After all, Lin, who was only a Genesis-grade alchemist, while Zhuo Wen was a peak creation-grade alchemist. The two of them weren't even on the same level. Lin, who quickly stepped forward and knelt in front of Zhuo Wen. His voice trembled as he said, "Celestial Master Zhuo, Lin who failed to recognize you and offended you. Please punish me. Lin who is willing to accept any punishment." Zhuo Wen looked at Lin, who silently. Lin, who was actually quite talented, but his alchemy skills were too low. Therefore, the way he treated Mei Su and Jiang Yi was correct in his opinion, but in Zhuo Wen's opinion, it was a complete mess. Moreover, because of the wrong treatment method, Mei Su and Jiang Yi had almost died. However, Zhuo Wen also knew that alchemist Riverside did not do it on purpose. He did not blame alchemist Riverside in his heart. Mei Ying didn't plead for Lin, who. She looked at Zhuo Wen cautiously. Zhuo Wen was too monstrous. His identity as an ascending heaven-grade array Tao master was already terrifying enough. However, this guy was also a peak creation-grade alchemist. Mei Ying knew that Zhuo Wen's achievements were second to none in the primitive heavenly region. As long as it was because of Zhuo Wen, the 10 great races of the prehistoric heaven realm would be on good terms with him. This person was destined to be an auspicious dragon that soared to the 9 heavens in the future. His status would far surpass hers. Now, in front of Zhuo Wen, she felt suppressed. Alchemist Lin Hu, you didn't do it on purpose. Now that Miss Mei Su and Uncle Jiang have been rescued, let's put this matter behind us. Zhuo Wen said with a smile. Alchemist Lin Hu was filled with gratitude. He hurriedly kowtowed to Zhuo Wen. Mei Ying also heaved a sigh of relief. Alchemist Lin Hu was, after all, a peak Genesis-grade alchemist. He was of a much higher level than all the alchemists in Hongxian God City. Mei Ying was naturally unwilling to lose such a talent. Now that Zhuo Wen was willing to let Alchemy Master Lakeside go, she was naturally relieved. Her heart was filled with gratitude towards Zhuo Wen. City Governor Mei Ying, I will need your Unity Spiritual Grass to refine the Yuan Spirit Concealment Pill. But don't worry. If I succeed, I won't take a single divine pill. I will give them all to you. Of course, if I fail, I will compensate you for your losses. Zhuo Wen said in a low voice. Mei Ying hurriedly waved his hand and said, Celestial Master Zhuo, you are too courteous. It is already a great favor that you are willing to refine the Yuan Spirit Concealment Pill for Mei Su and Uncle Jiang. How would I dare to ask for compensation? Also, if you succeed, we will split it 50-50 according to the alchemist's rules. Zhuo Wen originally wanted to reject, as he was not very confident that he could refine the Yuan Spirit Concealment Pill. Mei Ying had given him 3 stalks of Unity Spiritual Grass, which was a precious divine medicine, which made him feel a little embarrassed. However, since Mei Ying insisted, Zhuo Wen had no choice but to agree. Everything would be done according to the alchemist's rules. City Governor Mei Ying, pick a quiet room for me. I need to seclude myself for a period of time to refine the Yuan Spirit Concealment Pill. Zhuo Wen said to Mei Ying. Mei Ying nodded and began to instruct Great Guardian Ying Jie to arrange the room. After arranging the room, Zhuowen did not immediately enter seclusion to refine the divine medicine. Instead, he asked Mei Ying to gather the experts in Dark Rock Divine City and find out all the important locations in Dark Rock Divine City for him. There were a total of 12 key locations in Dark Rock Divine City. Each location was heavily guarded by the Dark Rock Divine City. After completing the investigation of the 12 key locations in Dark Rock Divine City, Zhuowen spent 3 days to set up the array foundation at each of the key locations. He planned to set up the 12 Divine Fiends array at these 12 key locations. Each location represented an ancestral sorcerer's shadow. In the end, he set up the main array foundation at the core of the city governor's mansion. Only Mei Ying and he knew the location. After setting up the 12 Divine Fiends array, Zhuowen entered the room and began to refine the Yuan Spirit Concealment Pill. Before going into seclusion, Zhuowen had sternly instructed Mei Ying not to disturb him, no matter what happened outside. In the Massacre Heavenly Domain, the only city that could threaten Dark Rock Divine City was the third Divine City, the Quiet Sun Divine City. If Mei Ying's information was true, even if the Quiet Sun Divine City sent an army to invade Dark Rock Divine City, as long as Mei Ying activated the 12 Divine Fiends array according to his instructions, the Quiet Sun Divine City's army would not be able to break through Dark Rock Divine City's defenses. After instructing Mei Ying, Zhuowen set up the array outside the room and went into seclusion. This seclusion was crucial for him. As long as he could successfully refine the Yuan Spirit Concealment Pill, he would become a heaven-piercing alchemist. Since ancient times, Zhuowen had only heard of one person who had reached the heaven-piercing alchemy Dao and array Dao. That person was the Alchemy Array Immortal Monarch who created the Alchemy Array Dao domain. He was also the creator of the Earth Pill Array True record that Zhuowen had obtained. Zhuowen also knew that if his Alchemy Dao could reach the heaven-piercing Alchemy Dao, he would be qualified to refine the Six Desires Spirit-Congealing Saint Pill. Of course, he was only qualified. After all, the Six Desires Spirit-Congealing Saint Pill was a divine pill at the peak of the heaven-piercing Alchemy Dao. It was extremely difficult to refine. Moreover, the Alchemy Array True record did not mention the pill formula for such a divine pill. It was said that the Alchemy Array Dao domain headquarters had the pill formula for the Six Desires Spirit-Congealing Saint Pill. In other words, after the primitive heavenly domain, Zhuowen had to make a trip to the Alchemy Array Dao domain to obtain the Six Desires Spirit-Congealing Saint Pill. In the dark room, Zhuowen took out the Imperial Pill Cauldron and looked at it silently. His gaze was solemn, and he did not immediately ignite the divine fire to refine the pill. There were only 3 sets of Unity Spirit Grass. In other words, he only had 3 chances. Before refining the pill, he had to adjust his state of mind and repeatedly simulate every detail of refining the Yuan Spirit Congealing Saint Pill. After confirming that there were no mistakes, he would start refining the pill. Chapter 3179. Qi Gaoming, the Plum Blossom Tribe, was a small tribe on the border between the Dark Rock Divine City and the Quiet Sun Divine City. They had a total population of about 50 people and were about the same size as the Tiani tribe, the first tribe that Zhuowen had seen when he first came to the Massacre Heaven Domain. At this moment, all the tribesmen of the Plum Blossom Tribe were trembling as they knelt on the ground. Surprisingly, their gazes were fixed on a distant place. About 1,000 meters away from the Plum Blossom Tribe, there was a black mass of soldiers riding on tall draconic horses. They were galloping towards the Plum Blossom Tribe. Wherever the army passed, dust and dirt would fly. The army of the Quiet Sun Divine City? Are they going to attack the territory of the Dark Rock Divine City? The chief of the Plum Blossom Tribe was an old man with white hair and beard. He stood at the entrance of the tribe, trembling as his legs turned to jelly. He was only the chief of a small tribe, and had never seen such a terrifying army. At this moment, the black mass of soldiers that appeared in front of him numbered no less than 10,000. It was enough to crush the Plum Blossom tribe to the ground in an instant. The tribesmen of the Plum Blossom tribe didn't dare to run. They couldn't outrun the draconic horses. If they knelt and surrendered, they might live. If they ran, they would die without a doubt. The black mass of soldiers finally stopped at the entrance of the Plum Blossom tribe. This army was clad in splendid armors. Judging from the size of this army, they were all human beings. The leader of this army was very tall and sturdy. He had a dignified aura about him. This was a middle-aged man. He was extremely handsome and had a chiseled face. He held a long spear and rode slowly to the entrance of the Plum Blossom tribe on his draconic horse. He looked indifferently at the foreign tribesmen kneeling at the entrance of the tribe and said, "Are you the chief of this tribe?" The foreign tribesman trembled as he raised his head. He looked at the middle-aged man in front of him and said, "Sir, this old man is the chief of this tribe. This old man is willing to submit to you. I hope that you can spare our lives." "I agree to your surrender. However, I need to ask you something. I heard that the city lord of the Dark Rock Divine City, Ziche Shinhan, has fallen. Is this true?" The middle-aged man asked casually. The foreign race old man didn't dare to conceal anything, and quickly said, "Sir, your information is really fast. Ziju Xinhan has indeed fallen." "Yes, I heard that Zish Shinhan died because of the Hongxian Divine City's city lord, Meiying. Besides Meiying, who else participated in the operation to kill Zish Shinhan?" The middle-aged man was the city lord of the quiet sun god city, Qi Gaoming. He had already received the news of Zish Shinhan's death. He knew that Zish Shinhan had fallen because of his meeting with Meiying. Whether it was Zish Shinhan or Meiying, both of them were very strong. Since Zish Shinhan had fallen, Meiying must have been severely injured as well. This was the best opportunity for him to attack the Dark Rock Divine City. Therefore, he brought 10,000 elites from the quiet sun god city and rushed over. However, Qi Gaoming was a cautious person and didn't dare to enter Dark Rock Divine City rashly. The first thing he did after entering Dark Rock Divine City was to find out what had happened in Dark Rock Divine City. The foreign race old man shook his head and said, "I'm not too sure about this matter. I only know that City Lord Zish Shinhan has fallen. Before his death, City Lord Zish Shinhan received Hongxian Divine City's City Lord Meiying. Besides City Lord Meiying, I don't think anyone else is qualified to fight City Lord Zish Shinhan." Qi Gaoming nodded. The foreign race old man's thoughts were similar to his. In the Massacre Heavenly Domain, only Qi Gaoming and Meiying, two transcending heaven masters, could kill Zish Shinhan. Qi Gaoming didn't know that Zish Shinhan's cultivation had already broken through to the mid-stage transcending heaven master. After all, Zish Shinhan had just broken through and was killed by Meiying and Zhuowen before he could spread the news. Therefore, in Qi Gaoming's eyes, Zish Shinhan was still an early-stage transcending heaven master. However, Qi Gaoming still had some doubts because Zish Shinhan had fallen in his Dark Rock Divine City. He knew that although the Dark Rock Divine City's array formations couldn't be compared to the quiet sun god city, they weren't inferior. In Qi Gaoming's opinion, it was a little strange that Zish Shinhan had been killed by Meiying in his own territory. Could it be that Zish Xianhan's strength was really lacking? Although Qi Gaoming had some doubts, he knew that this was a rare opportunity. Since Zish Shinhan had fallen, Meiying must have been seriously injured. Moreover, the quiet sun god city had a creation-grade divine array master. The success rate of this attack on the dark rock divine city was very high. City Lord, you are too cautious. Since Zish Shinhan has fallen, Mei Ying will need some time to win the hearts of the people. Now is the time when the dark rock divine city is at its weakest. Moreover, I'm guessing that Zish Shinhan must have used a grand array during his battle with Mei Ying. I'm afraid that the grand array of the dark rock divine city is no longer complete. With me around, the grand array of the dark rock divine city is just a paper tiger. As long as we kill Mei Ying and the other high-ranking members of the Hongxian divine city, the dark rock divine city will naturally be ours. An old man in a black robe, who did not fit in with the surrounding soldiers, rode a dragon horse to Qi Gaoming's side. His voice was filled with pride. Qi Yingming looked at the black-robed old man and said politely, "Divine Master Zhou is right. However, the reason why I am so cautious is because Zish Shinhan's death is too strange. He was killed by Mei Ying in his own divine city." The black-robed old man said proudly, "City Lord Qi, your caution is unnecessary. With me around, the quiet sun god city will definitely be able to take down the dark rock divine city. In the massacre heavenly domain, there is no one who can surpass me in the array Dao. Even if Zish Shinhan and Mei Ying are still alive and have joined forces in the dark rock divine city, I can still ensure that you leave safely." Qi Yingming cupped his fists and firmly believed the black-robed old man's words. He knew that the black-robed old man was a creation-grade divine array master, the strongest divine array master in the massacre heavenly domain. However, the black-robed old man had always kept a low profile and was Qi Yingming's secret weapon. Neither the Hongxian divine city nor the dark rock divine city knew that he had such a powerful divine array master by his side. Now that he planned to attack the dark rock divine city, he naturally brought along such an important person. With the black-robed old man around, Qi Yingming believed that he had nothing to fear from the grand array of the dark rock divine city. Let's continue forward. We will attack the dark rock divine city directly after we take down the dark rock divine city. The tribes under the jurisdiction of the dark rock divine city will naturally submit to us. The black-robed old man continued. Chapter 3180. An army approaches in the main hall of the dark rock divine city. Mei Ying, great guardianing Jie riverside alchemist, and Hao Rui sat solemnly. When Mei Ying received the news that the quiet sun divine city's army was attacking, he immediately summoned great guardianing Jie, Hao Rui, and riverside alchemist. Mei Ying said solemnly, "I didn't expect the quiet sun divine city to send their army here so quickly." City Lord Mei Ying, our dark rock divine city has the 12 heavenly deities' fiendish array set up by immortal Master Zhua. We aren't afraid of the quiet sun divine city's army. If the quiet sun divine city's army doesn't know what's good for them and attacks our dark rock divine city, we can counterattack and catch them off guard. Alchemist Riverside stood up excitedly as he spoke in a loud and clear voice. After learning that Zhuowen had set up a heaven-piercing array in the dark rock divine city, Alchemist Riverside's admiration for Zhuowen grew. Now, he couldn't stop talking about Zhuowen. Mei Ying shook his head and said, "Before immortal Master Zhuo went into seclusion, he instructed us to bide our time and not counterattack." Why? Alchemist Riverside was puzzled. With the 12 heavenly deities' fiendish array, they could easily annihilate the quiet sun divine city's army. Mei Ying shook his head helplessly and said, "I don't know why immortal Master Zhua instructed us to do so. Since he instructed us to do so, we just need to do as he says." Hearing this, Lin Hu Alchemist also fell silent. Ever since he found out about Zhuo Wen's identity, He was extremely respectful towards Zhuo Wen. Although he felt that this decision was strange, he couldn't disobey Zhuo Wen's instructions. Lord Mei Ying, the Quiet Sun Divine City's army is not far from the city gates. The Quiet Sun Divine City's city lord, Qi Gaoming, has ordered you to surrender. A servant rushed in from outside and knelt in front of Mei Ying. His voice trembled slightly. So soon? Mei Ying was surprised, but he didn't show any signs of nervousness. He looked at the other 3 people in the hall and said, "Let's go to the city gates and take a look." Outside the dark rock divine city, Qi Gaoming rode on his dragon horse and stopped 500 meters away from the city gates. He looked at the tightly shut city gates and whispered to the black-robed elder beside him, "Divine Master Zhou, the great array of the dark rock divine city still exists." The black-robed elderly man chuckled coldly. "It's just a god of creation stage slaughter formation. I can destroy such a trashy formation in 10 breaths of time. City Lord, what you need to do now is to make Mei Ying surrender. If that Mei Ying knows what's good for him, I won't have to do anything. Of course, if he doesn't know what's good for him, I can easily destroy this city gate and any array in the city. I will make all the god masters in the city despair." Qi Gaoming heaved a light sigh of relief. Since it was only a god of creation stage killing formation, there was nothing for him to worry about. At this moment, Mei Ying appeared on top of the city wall with great guardian Ying Jia, alchemist Lin Hu, and the rest. They looked down at Qi Gaoming's group. When Qi Gaoming saw Mei Ying and the others coming out, he was puzzled because he realized that Mei Ying's aura was vigorous and his body was vigorous. He did not seem to be injured at all. However, Qi Gaoming did not take it to heart. In his opinion, Mei Ying should be strong. He did not believe that Mei Ying could kill a divine master like Zish Xian Han without suffering any injuries. "City Lord Mei Ying, I am very grateful that you helped me get rid of a great enemy like Zish Xian Han. Moreover, I know about the grudge between you and Zish Xian Han. I should congratulate you. However, now that the grudge between you and Zish Xian Han has been resolved, you can leave the Dark Rock Divine City. I will take over from here." Qi Yingming raised his head and looked at Mei Ying. The corners of his mouth curved upwards. Great guardian Ying Jia and alchemist Lin Hu glared at each other. This Qi Yingming was too full of himself. He actually asked Mei Ying to leave the Dark Rock Divine City and let him take over from here. Where did he get his confidence from? Mei Ying looked at Qi Yingming indifferently and said, "City Lord Qi, the Dark Rock Divine City is not a place that you can meddle in. I advise you to leave. I will not pursue your offensive actions." Before Qi Gaoming could speak, the black-robed old man by Qi Gaoming's side spoke first. "City Governor Mei Ying, City Governor Qi is right. It's best that you take your people and fuck off from Dark Rock City. If you don't get out now, you won't have the chance to do so. Who do you think you are? How dare you ask us to get out?" Great Guardian Ying Jia said coldly. Trash. How dare you refute me? Once you enter, I will let you know what despair is." The black-robed elder laughed coldly. He jumped down from the dragon horse and walked to the front of the city gate. With a wave of his sleeve, he took out 81 array flags and formed a seal with both hands. Instantly, the array flags flew out from his hands. The array flags floated in front of him in an orderly manner and began to arrange themselves. Soon after, they turned into a gust of black wind and entered the city gate. Suddenly, the array on the city gate's surface fluctuated violently. When the fluctuation reached its peak, the array on the city gate's surface collapsed. In an instant, the black-robed elder had destroyed the Genesis-level defensive array on the city gate. "It's a creation level divine, Array Master. I can't believe there is such a powerful divine, array master hidden in the Nether Sun Divine City. Mei was surprised. She finally knew why the black-robed elder was so arrogant, and why Qi Gaoming had come all the way to attack the Dark Rock Divine City. It was because of the existence of such a divine, array master. Regardless of whether it was Hongxian Divine City or Dark Rock Divine City, the grand arrays set up were basically Genesis-level grand arrays. It was too easy for the black-robed elder to destroy them. Even if it was an ordinary creation-level grand array, the elder would be able to destroy it. With such an existence, the Dark Rock Divine City's grand array was indeed just a decoration. Mei, I advise you to surrender. I won't make things difficult for you. I will let you return to Hongxian Divine City, and we will mind our own business, Qi Gaoming said with a faint smile. However, Mei laughed and said, Qi Gaoming, if you have the guts, then go ahead and attack. If you can break into the Dark Rock Divine City, then you have the ability. What's the use of saying that you are so powerful? Qi Gaoming was inwardly annoyed. Mei really underestimated him. Even Divine Master Zhou had made a move, but this fellow didn't show any fear. Instead, he was making fun of him. You have wasted your last chance. Since that's the case, then I won't be polite with you. Divine Master Zhou, help me destroy the entire Dark Rock Divine City's grand array. I want to force my way in. Qi Gaoming looked at the black-robed old man, and the latter sneered. After saying that there was no problem, he formed a seal with both hands, and the 49 array flags flew out and left afterimages in the air. Instantly, the grand array that covered the surface of the Dark Rock Divine City began to fluctuate violently. With a rumble, the grand formation shattered into countless pieces of fine powder, and they scattered like specks of stars that fell to the ground. Follow me and attack. Chapter 3181. Exit of the Pass. Qi Gaoming took the lead. Before he reached the city gate, he thrust his spear forward. The spear's shadow was like lightning as it streaked across the sky and landed on the city gate. Bang! The city gate exploded with a loud bang, shattering into countless fragments. When the city gate was destroyed, the black-robed elder changed his hand seal and kept all the array flags. He leaped onto the dragon horse and followed the army into the city. City Governor Mei, are you regretting it? The black-robed elder looked up at Mei, who was still standing on the city wall, and a mocking smile appeared on his face. What surprised the black-robed elder was that Mei was standing quietly on the city wall. His eyes were calm, and he did not see any trace of nervousness in Mei Ying's eyes. Humph! Are you still pretending? Let's see if you can continue pretending after we take down Dark Rock Divine City. The black-robed elder was unhappy with Mei Ying's calmness. He liked it when others surrendered to him and showed signs of regret. You are the ones who should regret it, not me. Mei Ying stood on the city wall and said softly. After Qi Gaoming entered the city, he immediately felt that something was amiss. He realized that there was no one on the street behind the city gate. Mei Ying must have known that our army is here. That's why he arranged for the people in the city to stay in the city governor's mansion. Let's continue forward and charge into the city governor's mansion. The black-robed elder caught up with Qi Gaoming and said in a cold and deep voice. Qi Gaoming nodded. Since the array in Dark Rock Divine City had been destroyed by the black-robed elder, he had nothing to worry about. Swoosh! Qi Gaoming continued forward at lightning speed. However, the deeper he went into the city, the more he felt that something was amiss. The black-robed elder also felt that something was amiss. He and Qi Gaoming stopped at the same time. Divine Master Zhou, what's going on? Why do I feel like I'm walking on the same spot? Qi Gaoming asked curiously. The black-robed elder's eyes flickered. He took out the array flags and started to deduce. After a while, the black-robed elder kept the array flags and said with a ghastly expression, "City Governor, we have entered a large array." "What? Entered a large array? Could it be that you didn't notice it in advance?" Chi Gaoming's expression was ugly as he spoke in an unfriendly tone. The black-robed old man coughed dryly and said, "City Lord, this formation is not simple. It could very well be a heavenly ascension formation." Chi Gaoming almost fell off his horse. He stood up again and looked at the black-robed elder in disbelief. "What? What did you say? You're saying that this is a heaven-piercing array?" The black-robed old man smiled bitterly. "Even I couldn't sense it, apart from the heavenly ascension formation. There really isn't any other formation that can hide from me. I'm afraid there's a heaven ascension formation God Master in Dark Rock Divine City." At this point, the black-robed elder's eyes were filled with regret. He did not expect that there would be a divine array master in the Massacre Sky domain. One had to know that only the human race had this level of array Dao master. Even in the Xianmi heavenly domain, such existences were extremely rare, and all of them were old monsters. Chi Gaoming's face was green with anger. If he had known that there was a heaven-piercing formation Dao master in Dark Rock Divine City, he wouldn't have brought his army here to court death, no matter how bold he was. Thud, thud, thud. Suddenly, the sound of heavy footsteps came from 12 different directions. Immediately, Chi Gaoming and the others turned pale as they saw 12 incomparably huge phantoms coming from 12 different directions. These 12 figures all had powerful auras that were no weaker than early Lord Heavenspan cultivators. They were 12 illusory shadows of the early stage of the heavenly reaching realm. This is the 12 Overseers' Divine Wraith formation. We're doomed. The black-robed old man was so scared that his face turned pale. As for all the dragon horses in the army, after feeling the terrifying aura of these 12 phantoms, they all knelt on the ground and trembled all over. It's actually the 12 Overseers' Divine Killing Array. Chi Gaoming was so scared that his face was drained of blood. This 12 Divine Fiends formation was a famous killing formation among the transcending heaven-grade formations. Just this formation alone was enough to wipe out his entire army. The 12 ancestral sorcerer shadows surrounded the formation of the Nether Sun Divine City like 12 huge mountains. They stood there without any intention of attacking. However, when someone tried to take advantage of the situation and tried to escape through the gaps between the illusory shadows, the ancestral sorcerer shadows would immediately launch an attack and trample the person to death. "Don't move." Chi Gaoming hurriedly ordered the army. He could see that the 12 ancestral sorcerer shadows did not intend to kill them, but to trap them in the middle and prevent them from leaving. "City Governor Meiying, can you come out and talk?" Chi Gaoming shouted loudly. Soon, his voice was answered. Mei Ying's voice came from the formation. "City Governor Chi, I warned you not to do anything stupid. Unfortunately, you insisted on breaking in." "City Governor Meiying, this is my fault. I'm willing to apologize to you. How about this? As long as you let me out, I'm willing to give you 50% of the jade or vein in the Nether Sun Divine City." Chi Gaoming said helplessly. He knew that he had to admit defeat to have a slim chance of survival. "My words don't count here. If you want to surrender, you'll have to get Immortal Master Zhua's approval first." Mei Ying's voice came again. "Immortal Master Zhua? Who's that?" Chi Gaoming asked in confusion. Immortal Master Zhua is the true master of Dark Rock Divine City. This formation was also set up by Immortal Master Zhua, Mei Ying said indifferently. Chi Gaoming reacted and quickly said, "City Governor Mei Ying, can you help me inform Immortal Master Zhua?" Mei Ying's voice was still calm as he said, "Immortal Master Zhua is now in seclusion. He instructed me not to disturb him unless it's a matter of life and death. If you want to surrender, wait until Immortal Master Zhuo comes out. Qi Gaoming was anxious. Just as he was about to continue speaking, Mei Ying's voice stopped. The 12 divine fiends formation set up by Immortal Master Zhuo is really powerful and terrifying. The army of Nether Sun Divine City is completely trapped inside. They can't do anything about it. Great Guardian Ingjie's eyes shone brightly. Alchemist Lin Hu said doubtfully, the 12 divine fiends formation is so powerful that it can completely annihilate the army of Nether Sun Divine City. Why didn't the formation have any reaction? This formation is controlled by Immortal Master Zhuo. I'm afraid Immortal Master Zhuo deliberately did this to spare the army of Nether Sun Divine City. As for the details, we'll wait until Immortal Master Zhuo comes out of seclusion. Mei Ying said. Time passed second by second. Soon, half a month's time was up. Zhuowen's room suddenly exploded with a terrifying energy. Soon after, Zhuowen's room exploded and black smoke rose into the sky. Chapter 3182. The Mysterious Celestial Master, Zhuowen's expression was very ugly. He looked at the room behind him that had already turned into ruins and sighed, the furnace actually exploded. I clearly followed the steps in the True Pill Array record to refine the first Yuan concealing spirit treasure pill, but I still failed. Zhuowen waved his right hand, and the cauldron flew out from the ruins. The surface of the cauldron was covered with black marks. Fortunately, there were no cracks. When the cauldron exploded, the Alchemy Emperor Turtle acted in time and threw all the unstable medicinal dregs out of the cauldron. Only then did the cauldron survive. Kid, you're too reckless. Your alchemy skills are still lacking. Forcefully refining the 1 yuan spirit-concealing pill will only cause a serious cauldron explosion. Didn't you already know that when you failed the first time, you still failed the second time? Xiao Hei's exasperated voice came from the cauldron. Its voice was filled with lingering fear. The cauldron was closely related to it. If it exploded, it would also be implicated. Now, the Alchemy Emperor Turtle was very dissatisfied with Zhuowen. Zhuowen was helpless. He could only apologize to the Alchemy Emperor Turtle and say that he would not dare to do this again. Only then did the Alchemy Emperor Turtle calm down. Mei Ying and the others hurried to Zhuowen. Mei Ying looked worriedly at the disheveled youth in front of him. Celestial Master Zhuo, are you all right? Zhuowen shook his head as warmth filled his heart. Mei Ying had come to ask about his safety instead of the success or failure of the divine pellet. This made Zhuowen's impression of Mei Ying improve greatly. City Lord Mei Ying, I failed to refine the 1 yuan spirit-concealing pill this time. Zhuowen was slightly ashamed. You failed all 3 times? Mei Ying's expression changed slightly. I failed once. Zhuowen sighed. But if I have more time, I can successfully refine the 1 yuan spirit-concealing pill. Zhuowen's confidence did not diminish. This failure gave him a lot of inspiration. He knew that his alchemy skills were still lacking. The improvement of alchemy Dao standards required sudden enlightenment. It was not something that could be improved in a short period of time. However, Zhuowen had a cheating device like the mysterious stone. As long as he had enough jade stones, the mysterious stone would give him another chance to gain insight. Seeing that Zhuowen had only failed once, Mei Ying's gaze softened. She also knew that Zhuowen was not a heaven-connecting great alchemist, and wanting to succeed in one go was definitely unrealistic. She had long since made preparations for this. By the way, City Lord Mei Ying, how many jadestone mines are there in Dark Rock Divine City? Zhuowen looked at Mei Ying and asked. It was obvious that Mei Ying had already done his research. He swiftly said, there are a total of 4 jade or veins in Dark Rock Divine City. However, most of the ore veins in two of them have already been mined. One of them is already half mined. The last ore vein is relatively intact. Are there large mineral veins everywhere? Zhuowen asked with a frown. Mei Ying shook his head and said, there are only two large mineral veins, and these two are the ones that I have already mined most of the mineral veins. The other two are medium mineral veins, and their jade stone reserves are not high. Then how much jade stone reserves does Dark Rock Divine City have now? Zhuowen asked. Mei Ying said in a low voice, including the unmined ore veins and the jade stones that have already been mined in Dark Rock Divine City, I have calculated that the total is close to 3 million. According to our previous agreement, Immortal Master Zhua, you are now the City Lord of Dark Rock Divine City. You have the right to control these jade stones. I will only take 10% of the jade stones. Zhuowen nodded. He had already discussed this matter with Mei Ying, so he did not argue. What's more, he really needed a lot of jade stones. He could feel that if the mysterious stone wanted to give him that mysterious power again, it would probably need more jade stones. The 12 Divine Fiends formation has been activated. Zhuowen was surprised. He had just come out of seclusion, so he did not notice it. Now that he had settled down, he immediately noticed the abnormality in the 12 Divine Fiends formation. Immortal Master Zhua, the army of the Quiet Sun Divine City has invaded our Dark Rock Divine City. In the end, they rushed into the range of the 12 Divine Fiends formation. However, we followed Immortal Master Zhua's instructions and did not attack the army of the Quiet Sun Divine City. They are still trapped in the formation. Mei Ying lowered his head and said with a respectful expression, the army of the Quiet Sun Divine City arrived so quickly? Zhuowen was surprised and said, let's go take a look. Zhuowen led Mei Ying and the others to the periphery of the 12 Divine Fiends formation. Zhuowen waved his right hand, and a hole as tall as a person appeared outside the formation. Immortal Master Zhua, are we going to enter the formation? There are more than 10,000 soldiers of the Quiet Sun Divine City inside. Great Protector Yingjia said nervously. Don't worry. The 12 Overseer Divine Wraith formation is completely under my control. Not to mention an army of 10,000. Even an army of 1,000,000 would have to lie down in front of me. Zhuowen waved his hand and walked into the grand array with large strides. Mei Ying and the others looked at each other. Although they were hesitant, they still followed Zhuowen into the formation when they thought of the terrifying power of the 12 Divine Fiends formation. The moment they entered the formation, Mei Ying and the others saw the 12 enormous ancestral sorcerers' silhouettes standing in the center. The 12 ancestral sorcerers' silhouettes formed a circle and surrounded the army of the Quiet Sun Divine City. The army of more than 10,000 soldiers was like a rat that was surrounded. They were panic-stricken and looked flustered. The city lord of the Quiet Sun Divine City, Qi Gaoming, rode on the dragon horse and frowned. They had been trapped in the formation for half a month. During this half a month, Mei Ying's voice had not been heard. Qi Gaoming became more and more anxious. He began to regret his decision to invade the Dark Rock Divine City. The Dark Rock Divine City had such a terrifying formation. Even if the entire Quiet Sun Divine City came, it would be useless. They would only have one more city of cannon fodder. City Lord, look in front. There seems to be someone there. The black-robed elder suddenly pointed to the front, at the gap between the two ancestral sorcerers' silhouettes. Qi Gaoming looked over, and indeed saw a few faintly discernible figures slowly walking over from afar. Is that City Lord Mei Ying? When the group of people walked closer, Qi Gaoming recognized Mei Ying, who was walking behind Zhuowen. Who is that person? The black-robed elder's gaze fell on Zhuowen, who was walking at the front. He frowned slightly. He was unfamiliar with this young man and had never seen him before. I don't know this person either. However, if City Lord Mei Ying is walking behind him, this person is definitely not simple. It's very likely that he is the immortal Master Zhua that Mei Ying mentioned before. Qi Gaoming said in a serious voice, "It can't be. This person is very young. Is he the immortal Master Zhua who set up the 12 Divine Fiends formation? This isn't a joke, right?" The black-robed elder was dumbfounded when he found out that Immortal Master Zhua was the one who set up the 12 Divine Fiends formation. He had always wanted to meet Immortal Master Zhua. In his impression, Immortal Master Zhua was a white-haired old man with a sage-like demeanor. Chapter 3183. Extortion. Zhuan stopped at the foot of an ancestral shaman phantom and glanced at the army in front of him. "Which one of you is the city lord of Quiet Sun City?" Qi Gaoming stepped forward, followed by a black-robed elder. "I am, sir. You are Immortal Master Zhua?" Qi Gaoming asked cautiously. "That's right." Zhuan looked at Qi Gaoming and the army behind him. Mei Ying was right. Everyone in Quiet Sun City was human. The reason why he had instructed Mei Ying to bide his time was because they were both humans. After all, he was essentially a human too. As long as there wasn't too much conflict, he wouldn't kill his own kind. "Immortal Master Zhua, we didn't mean to offend you. This was an accident. As long as you let us go, we swear that we will never become enemies with Dark Rock City," Qi Gaoming said with a flattering smile. Mei Ying snorted coldly and said, "City Governor Qi, half a month ago, I still remember that you said that you would give us 50% of the Jade Stone Mine in exchange for leaving the formation. Now you've changed your mind immediately. Isn't it a little too fast?" Qi Gaoming didn't take it to heart. He looked at Zhuan and said, "Immortal Master Zhua, I do admire your level of formation Dao, but you made a mistake by entering the Great Formation. You're just an eternal overlord. I can kill you with a snap of my fingers. I think you'd better know your limits. Let us go. This is the only way you can save yourselves." Qi Gaoming was indeed very close to Zhuan. He was even closer to Zhuan than Mei Ying. Given Qi Gaoming's cultivation as the Skirich Lord, he could indeed kill an eternal overlord at this distance. Zhuan's lips curled into a mocking smile. Qi Gaoming really didn't know his limits. How dare he act so arrogantly in his great formation? "City Lord Qi, are you sure you can kill me?" Zhuan smiled faintly. "Haha, do I need to be sure?" Qi Gaoming sneered. Then he suddenly jumped off the dragon horse and rushed towards Zhuan at lightning speed. Qi Gaoming was confident that he could reach Zhuan before Mei Ying did. He was much closer to Zhuan than Mei Ying. Furthermore, he was an expert in movement techniques. His speed was almost comparable to Mei Ying's soul assault. However, when Qi Gaoming arrived in front of Zhuan, he saw that Mei Ying was standing motionlessly behind him. He was not worried about Zhuan's safety at all. This gave Qi Gaoming an ominous feeling in his mind. He's right in front of me, but he's only an eternal overlord. What can he possibly do to me? Qi Gaoming sneered again and again. He no longer thought about it. His right hand formed a claw and grabbed toward Zhuan's head. He really didn't like Zhuan's calm expression. He wanted to use this method to humiliate Zhuan. Bang! However, when Qi Gaoming grabbed Zhuan, the ancestral sorcerer's shadow standing beside Zhuan immediately moved. A huge palm pressed down and pressed Qi Gaoming to the ground. Qi Gaoming groaned and unleashed the power of an early master of heaven ascension. He slowly lifted the huge palm of the ancestral sorcerer's shadow. The shadows in this formation can still move. Qi Gaoming's face was pale. He looked at Zhuan in shock. He had always thought that the 12 shadows were only there to trap them. He didn't expect them to be able to move and attack him. Zhuowen bent his finger and pointed in the air. The shadow's hand grabbed Qi Gaoming's head and threw him into the air. Then it punched Qi Gaoming's body. Bang! Qi Gaoming was hit so hard that he felt dizzy. He saw stars in his head and was quickly sent flying backwards. The place where Qi Gaoming was sent flying was exactly where the next shadow was. The next shadow raised its huge palm and slammed it on Qi Gaoming's body. Qi Gaoming felt that his bones were about to fall apart, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. He wanted to struggle, but he found that he was forced to fly towards the third shadow. The next action of the third shadow was exactly the same as the previous two. It directly slapped Qi Gaoming, causing him to vomit blood. Then, Qi Gaoming was slapped around by the 12 ancestral sorcerer's shadows like a rubber ball. He flew left and right in the sky, and his screams almost never stopped. The quiet Sun Divine City's army was petrified when they saw this scene. In their eyes, the high and mighty city lord was being slapped around in the sky like a toy. This was a direct slap to their quiet Sun Divine City's face. Immortal Master Zhua, that's enough. Please let our city lord go. We are willing to pay any price. The black-robed old man couldn't stand it anymore. He knew that if he continued to let Qi Gaoming fly in the sky, his life would be in danger. Oh, any price? Zhuowen glanced at the black-robed old man, and the corners of his mouth curled into an evil smile. When the black-robed old man saw the smile on Zhuowen's face, he couldn't help but shudder, and a bad feeling rose in his heart. I heard from City Lord Mei Ying that you were willing to exchange 50% of your jade stone reserves for a chance to leave the Great Array. Now that your City Lord has offended me, you can exchange the remaining 50% of your jade stone reserves for him. Zhuowen said indifferently, What? You want all the jade stone reserves of my quiet Sun Divine City? The black-robed old man widened his eyes and said in an unfriendly tone, That's right. Now you have only two choices. One is to hand over all the jade stones in your quiet Sun Divine City, and the other is to die in this 12 Overseers Divine Killing Array. Zhuowen said in a cold voice. The black-robed old man hesitated. Jade stones were too important in the massacre heavenly domain. If they handed over all their jade stones, the quiet Sun Divine City would fall into chaos. Divine Master Zhou, promise him. In midair, Qi Gaoming spat out another mouthful of blood. He struggled to say those words, but they were replaced by miserable shrieks again. He smelled the scent of death. If he didn't stop, he would really be played to death by the 12 ancestral sorcerer phantoms. The black-robed old man sighed and said helplessly, Divine Master Zhou, you win. We are willing to hand over all the jade stones in the quiet Sun Divine City. I hope you can let us go. A wise man submits to circumstances. Zhuowen smiled and clapped his hands. The 12 ancestral sorcerer phantoms immediately stopped moving, and Qi Gaoming fell from midair, crying out in pain. Mei Ying took a step forward and grabbed Qi Gaoming, then came to Zhuowen's side. Zhuowen waved his sleeve, and the 12 Overseers Divine Killing Array cracked open. The 12 ancestral sorcerer phantoms strode away and disappeared from everyone's sight. You can leave now. Before you leave, remember the promise you made to me. Also, remember that your city lord is still in my hands. Otherwise, you will have to bear my wrath. I will only give you 1 month's time. If you can't deliver the jade stones I want in a month's time, I will personally pay you a visit. As for your city lord, you should know very well what will happen to him. After Zhuowen finished speaking, he left with Mei Ying and the others. Chapter 3184. Successfully refined on the city wall, Mei Ying looked at the departing army and asked Zhuowen hesitantly, Immortal Master Zhua, Are you really going to let them go just like that? They will bring back the jade stones that I want. City Lord Maying, I will need a large amount of jade stones. I will give you your portion of the jade stones first. Zhuowen said to Maying. Maying understood Zhuowen's meaning and nodded. He then led Zhuowen to the treasury of the Dark Rock Divine City. The treasury of the Dark Rock Divine City was hidden under the City Lord's residence, and it was extremely well hidden. Mei-Ying was able to find the treasury in such a short time because of the clues provided by alchemist Lin Hu. As the strongest alchemist in the Dark Rock Divine City, alchemist Lin Hu was highly regarded by Zish Xinhan. Therefore, he knew many of the secrets of the Dark Rock Divine City. Mei-Ying opened the treasury's door, and Zhuowen entered the depths of the treasury. He discovered that the treasury was emitting a green glow, and it was filled with jade stones. Immortal Master Zhua, there are more than 900,000 jade stones in the treasury. Mei-Ying pointed at the jade stones and said. Zhuowen waved his sleeve and took out 300,000 jade stones. He handed them to Mei-Ying and said, City Lord Mei-Ying, these are the jade stones that I promised to give you. You can leave now. I need to deal with the remaining jade stones. Mei-Ying did not ask any questions and left the treasury with the 300,000 jade stones. Once Mei-Ying left, Zhuowen took out the mysterious stone. The mysterious stone was extremely excited. It turned into a shadow and pierced through the void. It drilled into the pile of jade stones and rapidly absorbed the energy within the pile. Soon, Zhuowen discovered that all the jade stones in the treasury had been absorbed by the mysterious stone. The mysterious stone flew back to Zhuowen's palm. Zhuowen discovered that the surface of the mysterious stone was much smoother than before. It was sparkling and emitting a white glow. Moreover, the complicated patterns on the surface of the mysterious stone were much more dazzling than before. Zhuowen carefully observed the patterns on the surface of the stone. He discovered that the surface area of the patterns was larger than before. Originally, after the mysterious stone absorbed nearly half of the jade or vein in Death Valley, 1/3 of its surface was covered with complex patterns. Now, more than 1/3 of the mysterious stone's surface had been covered, and less than half of it had been covered. Zhuowen had a feeling that if the pattern covered half of the mysterious stone's surface, the mysterious stone would release the mysterious energy again, and he would enter a state of enlightenment again. When he thought of this, Zhuowen could not wait any longer. After leaving the treasury, he headed straight for the 4 mining areas of Dark Rock Divine City. Due to Zhuowen's prior instructions, there was basically no one in the 4 mining areas. As soon as Zhuowen entered the mine, he immediately took out the mysterious stone and let it absorb the energy of the jade stone happily. When all of the jade stones in the mining area had been absorbed by the mysterious stone, the patterns on the surface of the mysterious stone had already spread to half of the entire mysterious stone. As Zhuowen held the mysterious stone, he could already feel a mysterious energy surging out of it. This energy was like a trickle that slowly flowed into his body. It followed the meridians in his body and finally returned to his mind. At this moment, his mind seemed to explode. His thoughts became extremely clear at this moment. Zhuowen sat cross-legged in the mining area and casually set up a defensive array around him. He then took out the pill emperor furnace and various herbs for the soul-concealing elixir of first origin from the great world. Kid, you just failed to refine the elixir. Why are you trying to refine the elixir again? You are courting death. The pill emperor turtle crawled out of the pill emperor furnace and said unhappily. However, when it noticed Zhuowen's state, it immediately realized that Zhuowen might have entered a state of enlightenment. It immediately shut its mouth. What kind of medicine did this kid take? Why is he in a state of enlightenment again? The pill emperor turtle muttered softly. It did not dare to speak loudly, as it was afraid that it would disturb Zhuowen's state of enlightenment. At this moment, Zhuowen had already lit up the divine fire. The flames burned fiercely. He opened the furnace lid with his right hand and methodically threw the divine herbs into the Pill Emperor furnace. When he put the last main herb, the unity spiritual herb, into the Pill Emperor furnace, he closed the furnace lid and formed a pill seal with both hands. Time passed by minute. Zhuowen continued to form the pill seal with great familiarity. A rich medicinal fragrance began to waft out of the furnace and permeate the surrounding air. Half a month later, a thick white mist began to waft out of the furnace lid. Accompanying the white mist was a medicinal fragrance that assailed the nostrils. Bang! All of a sudden, Zhuowen's right hand slapped the cauldron's lid at a speed that was too fast for one to cover one's ears. The cauldron's lid flew up, and 12 black figures flew out from within the pill furnace. Each of the black shadows carried an extremely powerful and terrifying pressure. The entire mining area began to shake. An unprecedented earthquake had occurred. Zhuowen suddenly opened his eyes. He stretched out his right hand and caught the 12 black shadows in his palm. He opened his right hand, and 12 grayish-white elixirs lay quietly in his palm. They were the soul-concealing elixir of first origin. I finally successfully refined the soul-concealing elixir of first origin. Zhuowen's eyes revealed a look of enlightenment. He knew that the moment the soul-concealing elixir of first origin was formed, he knew that he had reached the realm that all alchemists dreamed of, the heaven ascension grade. In an instant, many lights of inspiration surged in his mind. All the doubts he had about alchemy in the past were all resolved in this instant. His eyes became clear and bright. Zhuowen knew that if he wanted to refine heaven ascension grade divine pills, his success rate would greatly increase. After putting the 12 soul-concealing elixir of first origin into a jade bottle, Zhuowen did not leave the mining area immediately. Instead, he took out another unity spiritual herb. He had just advanced to the heaven ascension grade, and his realm had not yet stabilized. He planned to refine another soul-concealing elixir of first origin to stabilize his realm. Opening the furnace again to refine elixirs, Zhuowen's following movements were as smooth as flowing water. Zhuowen spent another half a month's time, and he successfully refined the second furnace of soul-concealing elixir of first origin in one go. However, the quality of the second furnace of soul-concealing elixir of first origin was obviously a grade lower than the first furnace. Even so, Zhuowen was already very satisfied. The first time, he successfully refined the elixir of first origin in a state of enlightenment. Whether it was the technique or the steps, they were all perfect. Naturally, the elixir he refined was also flawless. After putting away the second batch of soul-concealing elixir of first origin, Zhuowen kept the Emperor Pill Furnace in the outside world and left the mining area. After returning to the Dark Rock Divine City, Zhuowen found that the people from the Quiet Sun Divine City had already arrived. Mei Ying was already receiving the representative of the Quiet Sun Divine City, who was also the black-robed old man who had fled in panic last time. This time, Zhuowen's return was received by alchemist Lin Hu. After alchemist Lin Hu brought Zhuowen to the city lord's mansion's meeting hall, he silently sat down on the seat of honor. Zhuowen sat on the main seat and looked at the black-robed old man who was sitting below, without saying a word. He said, "I heard from City Lord Mei Ying that you only brought 2 million jade stones this time." The black-robed old man's eyes flickered, and he nodded. "Immortal Master Zhuo, you're right. 2 million jade stones is all of our Quiet Sun Divine City's reserves." "Then how many mining areas does your Quiet Sun Divine City have?" Zhuowen asked casually. Chapter 3185. Follow the black-robed old man's smile stiffened as he feigned ignorance. Immortal Master Zhua, our quiet sun-divine city doesn't have many mining areas, but why are you suddenly asking about this? Zhuowen looked coldly at the black-robed old man who continued to feign ignorance. Divine Master Zhou, perhaps you didn't understand what I meant. I want all the jade stones in your quiet sun divine city. These 2 million jade stones are all the reserves of our quiet sun divine city. Immortal Master Zhua, I didn't lie to you, the black-robed old man said through gritted teeth. Bang! As soon as the black-robed old man finished speaking, he was hit in the chest by a powerful force. Immediately, he was sent flying and smashed into the ground in a sorry state. The black-robed old man struggled to get up, but he found that a terrifying energy vortex had appeared out of nowhere. It was like a strange, poisonous snake that wrapped around his body, making it difficult for him to move. He knew that this was the effect of the array that Zhuowen had set up in the hall. I want all the jade stones in your quiet sun divine city, and I mean all the mining areas in your quiet sun divine city. You better not play dumb with me. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless. Zhuowen's voice was full of impatience, and the murderous intent in his eyes was as vast as the sea, surging and terrifying. The black-robed old man was really frightened, and he felt the crisis of death. In the end, he gave in and handed over all the mining areas in the quiet sun divine city to Zhuowen. Zhuowen was expressionless as he ordered Mei Ying to bring Qi Gaoming over. Zhuowen also asked Qi Gaoming about the mining areas in the quiet sun divine city. After confirming that the black-robed old man did not hold anything back, Zhuowen was relieved. What surprised Zhuowen was that the quiet sun divine city had the most jade stone mining areas among the 3 divine cities. There were a total of 8 mining areas, and 3 of them were large or veins. This was definitely a big gain for Zhuowen. Immortal Master Zhua, we have already handed over all our jade stone reserves and the mining areas of our quiet sun divine city. Do you think you should let us go now? Qi Gaoming said weakly. Zhuowen looked at Qi Gaoming and suddenly said, City Lord Qi, are you willing to follow me for 1,000 years? Qi Gaoming was taken aback, and his face turned ugly. He was an Empyrean master after all. Though the young man in front of him was an Empyrean master, his true strength was only at the level of an eternal overlord. So what if this person's array Tao level was high? He would never choose to follow a cultivator whose cultivation level was lower than his. Furthermore, a follower was actually a type of servant. As the master of Skirich, how could he possibly choose to be a follower? If I say that I can help you reach the mid-level of Heavenspan Master in a short time, will you be willing to follow me? Zhuowen naturally knew that without something substantial, Qi Gaoming would definitely not agree to become his follower, so he put forward such a condition. His current level of alchemy had reached the level of Heavenspan Master, so he could refine Heavenspan divine pills. Of course, his alchemy level was still at the early level of Heavenspan Master, but if he relied on Hong Meng Wuji, he could refine mid-level Heavenspan divine pills. Therefore, it would not be difficult for him to refine a divine pill that could help him reach the early level of Heavenspan Master. As long as he had the corresponding divine herbs, there was a high chance of success. Qi Gaoming was stunned and immediately revealed a look of pleasant surprise, but he quickly calmed down and looked at Zhuowen doubtfully. He shook his head and said, I have been stuck at the early level of Heavenspan Master for many years. I have been exploring for so many years, but I have not been able to successfully break through. As for you, Qi Gaoming shook his head and looked at Zhuowen with disappointment. Obviously, he thought Zhuowen was bragging. City Lord Qi, It is indeed impossible for others to help you increase your cultivation level, but Immortal Master Zhua is qualified. Mei suddenly said. She stood up and said in a deep voice, "You should know that Immortal Master Zhua is also a Heavenspan Master." What? Qi Gaoming stood up abruptly and looked at Zhuowen in disbelief. He was already shocked and incredulous that Zhuowen was a Heavenspan Master of Array. Now, Mei was saying that this person was also a Heavenspan Master of Array. This was too terrifying. Reaching the Heavenspan Master of Array Dao and Alchemy Dao was unheard of in the entire universe. If there really was such a person, it would be the Alchemy Array Immortal Master who had shocked all the major heavenly regions. This was a truly terrifying genius with peerless talent. Unfortunately, after the Alchemy Array Immortal Master had established the Alchemy Array Dao domain, it was as if he had disappeared from the world. Moreover, countless years had passed since the Alchemy Array Immortal Master's appearance, and no one had been able to cultivate both Alchemy Dao and Array Dao to such a terrifying level. Now, someone had achieved it, and this person was standing right in front of Qi Gaoming. Immortal Master Zhua, I am willing to follow you. Qi Gaoming suddenly knelt on one knee in front of Zhuowen. His eyes were full of seriousness. If Zhuowen was only a Heavenspan Master of Array Dao, he would not have to be so cautious. After all, Zhuowen was not qualified for him to follow him. However, he now knew that the young man in front of him was fully qualified for him to follow him. Both Alchemy Dao and Array Dao had reached the Heavenspan Master of Array Dao. This meant that this person's achievements in the future would be terrifying. Such a future top-notch expert was worthy of him following. Moreover, he was optimistic about Zhuowen's future. Immortal Master Zhua, I, Zhou Shiwei, am also willing to follow City Lord Qi and follow you. The black-robed elder also knelt down and looked at Zhuowen with admiration. He was a creation-level God formation master, and he admired Zhuowen, who was even more powerful than him, to begin with. Now that he knew that Zhuowen was also a Heavenspan Master of Array Dao, he felt that this was a rare opportunity. If he missed this opportunity, it would be too late for him to regret it in the future. Zhuowen looked at Qi Gaoming and Zhou Xiuwei kneeling in front of him and nodded inwardly. Qi Gaoming and Zhou Xiuwei were both rare talents, especially Qi Gaoming. If his cultivation improved and advanced to the middle stage of Heavenspan Master, it would be extremely beneficial for him when he returned to the Xianmi heavenly domain. If you really want to follow me, then make a contract with me. If you violate the contract, you will be devoured by the heart demon and die. Zhuowen waved his sleeve and formed a contract array with Array Dao energy. It floated in front of Qi Gaoming and Zhou Xiuwei. Qi Gaoming and Zhou Xiuwei did not hesitate. They bit their fingertips and dripped a drop of blood essence into the contract array. After doing this, Zhuowen put away the contract array. He knew that the two of them were now his followers, which meant that they were his people. If they wanted to betray him, they would have to pay a terrible price. Immortal Master Zhua, can you leave some jade stones for our quiet Sun Divine City? If all of our jade stones are taken away, the entire Divine City will fall into chaos. Of course, I'm just making a suggestion. You don't have to take it to heart. Chapter 3186. Prepare. Zhuowen waved his hand and said indifferently, I want all of your quiet Sun Divine City's jade stones. Qi Gaoming's eyes dimmed. Although he was unwilling, he had no choice but to obey Zhuowen's orders. After all, he was now Zhuowen's follower. I know what you're worried about. You should be worried that the quiet Sun Divine City will lose its jade stone's energy supply, and the formation will fail. At that time, the city will fall into chaos, right? Zhuowen asked. Qi Gaoming nodded lightly and lowered his head, not saying a word. Although he was now Zhuowen's follower, he still felt uncomfortable with Zhuowen's ruthlessness. The jade stones are of great use to me. You don't have to worry about the quiet Sun Divine City's formation. Leave it to me. I will use the heavenly Tao origin crystals to set up even more powerful formations. Moreover, I will give you enough heavenly Tao origin crystals, no less than your jade stones. Zhuowen said indifferently, Immortal Master Zhua, you have heavenly Tao origin crystals? How is that possible? Qi Gaoming's pupils shrank as he asked in surprise. Zhuowen did not say a word. He waved his sleeve and took out a pile of heavenly Tao origin crystals from the outside world. When Qi Gaoming saw the heavenly Tao origin crystals appear in front of him, he rubbed his eyes, thinking that he had seen wrongly. He was too familiar with Zhuowen's action just now. It was the action of taking something out of a spatial artifact. In other words, the young man he followed could freely open his own spatial artifact in the massacre heavenly domain. I think you have guessed it. My spatial artifact can be opened, and I have enough heavenly Tao origin crystals in it. Are you still worried about the quiet Sun Divine City's formation? Zhuowen said indifferently. Qi Gaoming hurriedly bowed and said, Lord Zhua, I was ignorant. I hope Lord Zhua doesn't mind. Qi Gaoming was far inferior to Zhuowen's ability to open his spatial artifact. At this moment, Qi Gaoming was truly convinced by Zhuowen. Qi Gaoming also changed his address from Immortal Master Zhua to Lord Zhua. 10 days later, I will follow you to the quiet Sun Divine City. After I'm done with the matters in the quiet Sun Divine City, I will venture into the Forbidden Land and search for a way to leave the massacre heavenly domain. Zhuowen said. Qi Gaoming's gaze shook as he said, Lord Zhua, are you planning to barge into the Forbidden Zone? That is very dangerous. Qi Gaoming wanted to continue persuading Zhuowen's plan to stop. Brother Qi, my goal is to go to the primitive heaven domain, but I accidentally entered the slaughter heaven domain. If I didn't have anything important to do, I wouldn't be in such a hurry, but I have something very important to do, so I have to leave the slaughter heaven domain. Zhuowen's gaze was cautious. He was naturally going to the great, desolate heaven domain to find Mu Qinxue. Although he knew that Mu Qinshua's life was not in danger among the Phoenix people, he also knew that the longer Mu Qinxue stayed among the Phoenix people, the greater the risk. Qi Gaoming stopped abruptly. He saw the determination in Zhuowen's eyes and knew that it was useless to say anything more. He was a little worried. If Zhuowen really went to barge into the forbidden area and died in the end, wouldn't he as a follower become useless? After that, Zhuowen gave some instructions to Qi Gaoming and the others and announced that the meeting was adjourned. He planned to gather with Qi Gaoming and the others 10 days later and head to the quiet Sun Divine City. After the meeting, Mei Ying brought Zhuowen to the treasury of the city lord's mansion. Immortal Master Zhua, according to your request, the 2 million emerald stones from the quiet Sun Divine City are in this treasury. Mei Ying opened the door and pointed at the treasury. City Lord Mei Ying, thank you for your hard work. Before leaving the massacre heavenly domain, I will refine some divine pills for you to raise your cultivation. Zhuowen said in a deep voice. Mei Ying was overjoyed and quickly cupped her fists to express her gratitude. When Zhuowen promised Qi Gaoming that he could help her break through to the middle stage of the Tongtian Master Realm, Mei Ying was moved. If it wasn't for her reservations, she might have directly become Zhuowen's follower at that time. However, Mei Ying could see that Zhuowen had no intention of accepting her as a follower. But now, Zhuowen actually promised to concoct an earth god pill for her to raise her cultivation level. In fact, he was intending to help her raise her cultivation level. Immortal Master Zhua, I didn't do anything. I just asked you to refine some divine pills for me to raise my cultivation level. Mei said embarrassedly. Zhuowen waved his hand and said, City Lord Mei, you have helped me a lot. You don't have to be so courteous with me. Moreover, if I successfully leave the massacre heavenly domain, I don't know when I will come back again. This is my farewell gift to you. Mei Ying's beautiful eyes were filled with gratitude, and she nodded her head heavily. This is the Yuan spirit concealing pill. Give it to Miss Mei Su and Uncle Jiang. They should wake up soon. Zhuowen took out 2 Yuan spirit concealing pills and handed them to Mei Ying. Then he entered the treasury. Mei Ying looked at the closed door and bowed deeply. Then she hurriedly left with the 2 Yuan spirit concealing pills. She couldn't wait to feed Mei Su and Jiang Yi the first Yuan concealing spirit treasure pill. After entering the treasury, Zhuowen saw a shocking amount of jade stones. He took out the mysterious stone. The stone quickly pounced on the jade stones and violently absorbed the jade stones' energy. The entire treasury was filled with the rich energy of the jade stones. Zhuowen waited for half an hour before the mysterious stone finally finished absorbing all the jade stones in the treasury. With a wave of his right hand, the mysterious stone returned to his palm. He saw that the patterns on the stone's surface had already spread to 2/3 of the stone's surface. In the gloomy treasury, the patterns on the mysterious stone's surface emitted a translucent white light, illuminating the entire stone room. Zhuowen looked at the mysterious patterns that covered 2/3 of the stone's surface. He had an inexplicable feeling in his heart. The moment these patterns completely covered the stone, this mysterious stone would undergo a shocking transformation. A mysterious and profound energy came from the mysterious stone and spread from Zhuowen's palm to his entire body. Zhuowen sat cross-legged on the ground. After setting up a temporary formation around him, he wholeheartedly immersed himself in this state of epiphany. This time, he was not comprehending the Tao of pills and arrays, but the Tao of cultivation. His cultivation base had already reached the peak of the eternal overlord realm. With this epiphany, he would break through the eternal overlord realm and officially enter the 3rd step of Tao validation. Time passed minute by minute. In the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. Outside the treasury, Qi Gaoming and Zhou Xiuwei were already waiting, fully equipped and ready to go. They looked at the treasury and worriedly asked Mei Ying, City Lord Mei Ying, why hasn't Lord Zhuo come out yet? 10 days have passed, and he still hasn't come out of seclusion. Wait a little longer. Since Immortal Masters was said he would come out in 10 days, he will definitely keep his promise, Mei Ying said in a low voice. Beside Mei Ying, Mei Su and Jiang Yi looked at the treasury's door with a chessboard expression. Boom. Chapter 3187. Stepping into the 3rd step of Tao verification, a vast aura erupted, and the entire dark rock divine city shook violently. The treasury of the City Lord Mansion had already turned into a pile of rubble. In the sky above dark rock divine city, the clouds changed color as they poured down in torrents. Bolts of lightning intertwined and flickered in the dark clouds like lightning dragons faintly discernible within. The terrifying heavenly might shrouded the entire dark rock divine city. Many living beings in the city looked at the countless bolts of lightning in the sky and trembled in fear. Rumble! A bolt of lightning as thick as a towering tree descended from the sky and emitted a mysterious purple light. It landed on the ruins of the treasury and exploded. Mei Ying and the rest couldn't help but look at the spot where the purple lightning landed. There, a figure stood upright like a pine tree, and his body emitted a strong crystal light. Mei Ying and the rest were no strangers to this figure. It was Zhuowen. At this moment, Zhuowen was like a god of war. He stood in the same spot and was not afraid of the terrifying purple lightning. Bang! The purple lightning blasted into Zhuo Wen's body, instantly causing countless purple sparks to explode. The electric arcs spread throughout the entire space like countless silk threads. Mei Ying and the rest didn't dare to get too close. They kept retreating with fear in their eyes. Mei Su was pulled back by Mei Ying. Her beautiful eyes were filled with worry, especially when the purple lightning struck Zhuo Wen. She even screamed out loud. The electric arcs dissipated, and a huge crater appeared where Zhuo Wen was. In the middle of the crater, Zhuo Wen slowly climbed up. His body was crystal clear, as if it was carved out of jade. Mei Ying and the rest were dumbfounded. What kind of physical body did this guy have? Everyone clearly saw how terrifying the power of the purple thunderbolt was. Yet, this guy was completely fine. The moment the purple thunderbolt appeared, Mei Ying had already made a rough estimation. If she were to resist it with her physical body, she would definitely be severely injured, although she would not be killed immediately. City Lord, Immortal Master Zhuo seems to be going through the heavenly tribulation of the third step of Tao verification, the Creator Realm, right? Great Guardian Ing Jia stood beside Mei Ying. His face was pale, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. This was because he had never seen such a terrifying heavenly tribulation of a creator before. Back then, he had also advanced to the God of Creation stage, but compared to Zhuo Wen's tribulation, it was practically insignificant. It was not even worth mentioning. Mei Ying nodded solemnly. She finally understood why Zhuo Wen's strength was so terrifying even though his cultivation was not high. This guy was a monster that could not be judged by common sense. Rumble! Another purple lightning bolt that was not weaker than the first one fell from the sky. Zhuo Wen was not afraid at all. He leaped up and met the terrifying purple lightning head-on. Bang, bang, bang. Following that, more and more terrifying purple thunderbolts descended from the sky, one after another, becoming more and more terrifying and intense. Zhuo Wen withstood the attack with his Pangu's sacred body. Although the process was very painful, Zhuo Wen's eyes were filled with excitement. Although the earth tribulation of the third step of Tao verification was terrifying, the energy it contained was extremely rich. While Zhuo Wen withstood the terrifying lightning tribulation with his Pangu's sacred body, he was also absorbing the rich energy in the lightning tribulation. His Pangu's sacred body was also constantly strengthening. Bang! When Zhuo Wen withstood the last lightning bolt, he fell from the sky in a sorry state. However, he was smiling, and he was smiling very excitedly. After absorbing the last lightning bolt, his Pangu's sacred body had advanced from the late 6th star realm to the peak 6th star realm. Congratulations, Immortal Master Zhuo. You have successfully advanced to the Creator Realm. Mei Ying led Mei Su, Jiang Yi, and the others forward to congratulate Zhuo Wen. Qi Gaoming and Zhou Shiwei did not lag behind. They also went forward to congratulate Zhuo Wen with warm smiles on their faces. Zhuo Wen nodded slightly. Then he looked at Mei Su and Jiang Yi, who were beside Mei Ying, and said with a smile, "Miss Mei Su, Uncle Jiang, you are awake." Mei Su and Jiang Yi hurriedly cupped their fists at Zhuo Wen. Jiang Yi said gratefully, "Immortal Master Zhuo, I can't thank you enough. Jiang Yi, will always remember your life-saving grace. As long as Immortal Master Zhuo needs me in the future, I'll do anything for you." Zhuo Wen helped Mei Su and Jiang Yi up and said with a smile, "Miss Mei Su, Uncle Jiang, you are too kind. It was all thanks to you that I was able to find the emerald or vein in the Death Valley. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to find so many emerald ores." Zhuo Wen could clearly feel that Mei Su and Jiang Ye's attitude towards him was completely different from before. They were much more cautious and reserved. He knew that the two of them must have heard from Mei Ying about the things that had happened to him recently. Therefore, they were a little estranged from him. However, Zhuowen didn't mind. After chatting with Mei Ying and the others for a while, Zhuowen walked towards Qi Gaoming and Zhou Xiwei. "Brother Qi, Brother Zhou, let's go to the quiet Sun Divine City. Don't worry. After we arrive at the quiet Sun Divine City, I will first set up your city's array formations before we go to the mining area," Zhuowen said. "Many thanks, Lord Zhua." Qi Gaoming and Zhou Xiwei quickly bowed. After that, Zhuowen bid farewell to Mei Ying and the others. Together with Qi Gaoming and Zhou Xiwei, they mounted their dragon horses and left the Dark Rock Divine City. The distance between the Dark Rock Divine City and the Quiet Sun Divine City was not very far. The three of them rode their dragon horses at full speed, and it only took them 7 days to reach the Quiet Sun Divine City. As soon as they entered the Quiet Sun Divine City, Zhuowen followed his promise and modified the city's array formations. He also replaced the jade stone in the city's array formations with heavenly Tao origin crystals. After that, Zhuowen asked Qi Gaoming for a map of the Quiet Sun Divine City's various mining areas and hurriedly left the city. There were a total of 8 mining areas in the Quiet Sun Divine City, and Zhuowen started from the nearest mining area. The mysterious stone absorbed the jade stone at an extremely fast speed, but even so, it still took Zhuowen more than half a month to absorb the jade stone from the 7 mining areas in the Quiet Sun Divine City. The jade stone reserves in the 7 mining areas were indeed abundant, but the mysterious stone required an enormous amount of jade stone energy. Even after absorbing the jade stone from the 7 mining areas, it still wasn't enough for the mysterious stone to be completely covered by the mysterious stone. Zhuowen arrived at the last mining area, which was the largest mining area in the Quiet Sun Divine City. It was also the most recently discovered mineral vein in the Quiet Sun Divine City. It was said to be a huge mineral vein, and the jade stone reserves inside were more than 1 million jade stone. As soon as Zhuowen entered the mining area, he could feel the rich jade stone energy inside. Zhuowen stood at the entrance of the mining area and took out the mysterious stone. Like a bolt of lightning, the mysterious stone rushed into the dark depths of the mining area. Zhuowen did not follow in, but stood silently at the entrance of the mining area, waiting. He knew that the mysterious stone would come out after absorbing all the jade stone. Chapter 3188. Torch dragons, I in the gloomy mine. Zhuowen was like a gust of wind, constantly passing through. Zhuowen furrowed his brows more and more as he passed through the mine. He discovered that it was just too quiet in the mine. Moreover, the jade green stones in the surrounding mine were completely undamaged. In other words, the mysterious stone did not absorb the jadeite in the mine at all. But how could this be? In the past, as long as the mysterious stone entered the jadeite mine, it would be like a cat that smelled fish and could not wait to absorb the jadeite in the mine. But now, it did not even touch the jadeite in the mine. Could it be that there was something in the depths of the mine that was attracting the mysterious stone? Thinking of this, Zhuowen sped up and went deeper into the mine. Soon, he arrived at the end of the mine. With the help of the green light emitted by the jadeite, he saw that in the bottom left corner of the deepest part of the mine, there was a bottomless hole. To Zhuowen's surprise, the hole was emitting a blazing light. And the strange thing was that this blazing light only stopped in the hole and did not spread to the mine. It was as if there was a mysterious force at the entrance of the hole that was blocking the blazing light in the depths of the hole. Zhuowen guessed that the mysterious stone should have entered the hole. However, he was a little vigilant. He felt that the light in the hole was really strange. After hesitating for a while, Zhuowen decided to enter the hole to take a look. The mysterious stone was very important to him, so he naturally could not just leave it alone. Moreover, He had a feeling that when the lines on the surface of the mysterious stone were completely covered, it would undergo a transformation. To him, it was very likely to be a great fortune. It was because this feeling was too strong that Zhuowen attached great importance to the mysterious stone. After carefully observing the entrance of the hole, Zhuowen found that the entrance was not blocked by any formation or other energy, so he directly entered the hole. The moment he entered the hole, a strong white light immediately rushed into Zhuowen's eyes, forcing Zhuowen to close his eyes involuntarily. After a long time, Zhuowen opened his eyes with difficulty. However, the light in the cave was too strong, and Zhuowen could only squint his eyes. His vision was blurry, and he could barely make out the general direction of the path ahead. Zhuowen strode forward along the passage in front of him. At the same time, his muscles tightened, revealing the majesty of the Pangu's sacred body. This cave was too strange. He couldn't be sure if something dangerous would come out and attack him. However, as he continued to move forward, Zhuowen gradually relaxed his vigilance as no danger appeared in the cave. When Zhuowen landed on the ground, he found that he was in a huge karst cave. And in this karst cave, the most conspicuous thing was the incomparably huge stone pillar in the center. At the top of the stone pillar, there were two bright balls. The two balls were not small in size. They were about the size of a human head. The scorching light in the entire karst cave and the underground cave came from the two balls. At the same time, Zhuowen saw the mysterious stone. The mysterious stone was floating on the two balls at the top of the stone pillar. It was looking at the two balls in a human-like manner and circling around them. Zhuowen squinted his eyes, revealing a bewildered look. He could feel the aura of the wizard ancestor from these two balls. Are these two eyeballs? And they are the eyes of the wizard ancestor? Zhuowen muttered in a low voice. This pair of eyes that were like the scorching sun caused him to recall the candle dragon of the 12 grand shamans. The candle dragon had another name, which was the candle dragon. It was in the form of a human face and a snake body. In the north of Qishui, there was Zhongwei Mountain. There was a god with a human face and a snake body. Its eyes were bright. It was the candle dragon, the so-called candle dragon. It was said that the candle dragon's eyes could control time and the flow of time. Even among the 12 wizard ancestors, it was an extremely powerful and terrifying existence. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. Was the mysterious stone interested in the candle dragon's eyes? Of course, Zhuowen was also very surprised that he could see the candle dragon's eyes here. Does that mean that Grand Shaman Candle Dragon is in the slaughter heavenly domain? Zhuowen rushed to the top of the stone pillar and looked at the huge eyeball in front of him. To his surprise, the candle dragon's eyes rolled a few times when he came and stared at him. At this moment, Zhuowen only felt that the surrounding time and space seemed to be collapsing. An indescribable strong sense of oppression swept over, making him feel uncomfortable and suffocated. Zhuowen felt goosebumps all over his body. Fortunately, the candle dragon's eyes just stared at him and did not take any action to attack. Zhuowen put the mysterious stone back into the macro world, while Zhuowen stayed and silently observed the candle dragon's eyes. He could feel the closeness of the candle dragon's eyes to him. He knew that it was because he had the Pangu's sacred body. Zhuowen placed his right hand on the candle dragon's eyes and silently felt the emotions of the candle dragon's eyes. He felt a sense of sadness and sorrow, as well as a strong sense of unwillingness. The candle dragon has already fallen, Zhuowen muttered to himself. He saw intermittent memory fragments in the candle dragon's eyes. The memory fragments mainly recorded the scene where the 12 ancestral sorcerers and the 3 pure ones joined forces to fight against chaos. As the memory fragments were too fragmented, Zhuowen only saw intermittent battle scenes. The true face of chaos did not appear in any of the scenes. He only saw the 12 ancestral sorcerers and the 3 pure ones fighting with difficulty. The final scene was that the Candle Dragon used his life as the price to rewrite the surrounding time and space rules, giving the others a chance to attack chaos. The Candle Dragon had died, but its eyes had managed to survive while lingering at death's door. The Candle Dragon's eyes controlled the rotation of the sun and the moon, as well as the alternation of day and night. He was the ancestral sorcerer of time and space. It was precisely because the Candle Dragon's eyes were too powerful that they managed to survive on their own after the Candle Dragon died. However, Zhuan could also tell that this pair of Torch Dragon eyes had reached the end of its life. It wouldn't be long before this pair of Torch Dragon eyes would completely close and no longer emit such a dazzling light. "Are you willing to follow me?" Zhuan gently stroked the Candle Dragon's eyes and asked in a soft voice. The Candle Dragon's eyes blinked gently, and the light in the karst cave flickered. Zhuan knew that the Candle Dragon's eyes were willing to follow him. "I'll refine you and make you a part of my physical body. You'll be with me." Zhuan's voice was soft. The Candle Dragon's eyes blinked again to express its willingness. It could feel that the young man in front of it had the Pangu's sacred body. This aura made it feel very close, even closer than the Candle Dragon's body. Chapter 3189. Primordial Technique. Zhuan slowly opened his eyes. The Torch Dragon's eyes at the top of the stone pillar had already disappeared, and the surrounding cave was plunged into darkness. With a thought, Zhuan summoned a pair of giant eyeballs behind him. They were none other than the Torch Dragon's eyes. The moment the Torch Dragon's eyes appeared, Zhuan felt as if the surrounding darkness was nothing to him. Moreover, his vision continued to extend beyond the mining area to the quiet Sun Immortal City and the countless tribes within it. The Torch Dragon's eyes continued to extend, and Zhuan saw the Dark Rock Immortal City as well as the Hongxian Immortal City in the distance. At the same time, he also saw the boundless wasteland within the Massacre Heavenly Domain and the countless weathered rocks and sand dunes on the wasteland. Finally, Zhuan's vision stopped at the end of the boundless wasteland and a giant mountain shrouded in darkness. The surface of the giant mountain was densely covered with countless black trees. It was pitch black, and it was impossible to see what was inside the giant mountain. It was Zhuan's first time seeing this giant dark mountain, but he knew where it was. This was the forbidden zone of the Massacre Heavenly Domain, and the only way out of the Massacre Heavenly Domain. Zhuan's gaze turned solemn. With the help of the Torch Dragon's eyes, Zhuan could only see a part of the giant dark mountain, and it was very blurry. He knew that this mountain was not simple. Of course, if he was in the giant mountain, he should be able to see more with the help of the Torch Dragon's eyes. After putting away the Torch Dragon's eyes, Zhuan's face turned pale, and his lips curled into a bitter smile. Using the Torch Dragon's eyes consumed too much energy. In just a short while, he had used up 1/10 of his Heaven Dao energy. However, the power of the Torch Dragon's eyes surprised him. The Torch Dragon's eyes had an extremely wide field of vision that exceeded the limit of his divine sense. Additionally, when the Torch Dragon eyes appeared, it was silent. Unlike divine senses, which could be detected by cultivators, this was the biggest advantage of the Torch Dragon eyes. In the future, if Zhuan wanted to observe a battle between experts without being discovered, the Torch Dragon eyes would definitely be the best divine ability. It would be stealthy. Besides, after Zhuan merged the Torch Dragon eyes with his Pangu's sacred body, they were actually a part of it. As the level of the Pangu's sacred body increased, the power of the Torch Dragon eyes would also increase. Kacha! All of a sudden, dense cracks appeared on the stone pillar beneath Zhuan's feet. Finally, it collapsed with a loud bang, scattering into countless pieces of crushed stone. Zhuowen landed on the ground and noticed that there was a glimmer of light in the ruins of the stone pillars. Zhuowen came to the place where the light was and bent down to pick it up. Only then did he notice that the thing shining with light was actually a piece of cloth. The material of this piece of cloth was very special. It was like metal, and its luster was like a mirror faintly emitting a dim light. From the tear marks on the edge of the cloth, Zhuowen could tell that the cloth was not complete. However, the moment he flipped open the front of the cloth, a sense of familiarity overwhelmed him. There was a map drawn on the front of the cloth. Zhuowen took out a fragmented map from the outside world. The fragmented map was made of the same material as the cloth in front of him. Zhuowen had obtained this fragmented map by accident. At that time, he knew that the route drawn on the fragmented map was definitely related to the candle dragon. However, the fragmented map was too incomplete. Zhuowen could not be sure of the terrain drawn on the fragmented map at all. When Zhuowen pieced the fragmented map together with the fragmented parts of the cloth, it immediately became a complete map. This map is the route to find the candle dragon's corpse. Was this map drawn by the torch dragon eyes? Zhuowen held the complete map, and his eyes shone brightly. He realized that the route drawn on the map was the forbidden zone of the Massacre Sky domain. In other words, the candle dragon's corpse was in the forbidden zone of the Massacre Sky domain. At the thought of this, Zhuowen's eyes were filled with excitement. His Pangu's sacred body had already reached the peak of 6 stars. He was only 1 step away from upgrading his Pangu's sacred body to 7 stars. Moreover, once his Pangu's sacred body was upgraded to 7 stars, there would be a qualitative change. Moreover, the 7 stars Pangu's sacred body would also use the Pangu's sacred power, the last ultimacy of the Pangu flag. His abilities would also increase tremendously. It could be said that the candle dragon's venomous insect was extremely useful to him. This time, he had to get the venomous insect. After leaving the underground cave, Zhuowen returned to the jade or vein. He took out the mysterious stone and signaled it to absorb the jade, or in the vein, as much as it wanted. After the aura of the torch dragon eyes disappeared, the mysterious stone focused its attention on the jade or in the vein again. With a swoosh, it turned into a stream of light and disappeared on the spot. Everywhere it passed, the jade or turned into dust. About an hour later, all the jade or in the vein was absorbed by the mysterious stone. This time, the surface of the mysterious stone was completely covered by veins. An ancient and vicissitude aura slowly flowed out from the mysterious stone. When Zhuowen felt the aura, he felt his heartbeat quicken and his breathing quicken. His face turned pale. The aura was filled with an unquestionable and terrifying pressure. It crushed Zhuowen's body, causing Zhuowen to not dare to move at all. Suddenly, the mysterious stone floated in front of Zhuowen's forehead. Zhuowen could clearly see the countless bright veins on the surface of the mysterious stone. At this moment, they began to arrange themselves vertically and horizontally. In the end, the veins gathered at the center of the stone and formed an ancient word. Zhuowen had never seen this ancient word before. However, the moment he saw this word, the word Tai appeared in his mind. This thought suddenly appeared in his mind, as if some mysterious force had forcefully stuffed this word into his mind. This time, the mysterious energy from the mysterious stone no longer surged into Zhuowen's body and caused him to fall into an epiphany. Instead, ancient information emerged in Zhuowen's mind. The information was profound and mysterious. The words that formed the information were the same as the word Tai. Zhuowen had never seen them before. Although he had never seen it before, the moment the information entered his mind, he naturally knew the specific content of the information. When Zhuowen received all the information, his eyes were filled with shock. At this moment, the mysterious stone fell into Zhuowen's palm. The veins on its surface had already dimmed. Only the ancient word flickered with a faint light and was full of mystery. The information transmitted to him by the mysterious stone mainly talked about a cultivation technique. The cultivation technique was called the primordial technique. If it was an ordinary cultivation technique, Zhuowen would not be so shocked. Chapter 30, 190. Heaven-crushing 9 transformations. Zhuowen's expression was solemn. The starting point of the primordial technique was the heaven-crushing realm. It was clear that this cultivation technique was an existence that transcended this galaxy. It was a supreme cultivation technique. Moreover, after carefully digesting the information transmitted from the mysterious stone, Zhuowen discovered a fact. With his current cultivation level, he couldn't cultivate the primordial technique at all. Apart from that, the information in the mysterious stone mentioned that it was called the primordial stone. There were a total of 4 primordial stones, and a part of the primordial technique was hidden in each of them. In other words, the grand word stone that Zhuowen obtained was only a quarter of the primordial stone, and it only contained a quarter of the primordial technique. Although Zhuowen was a little regretful that he couldn't cultivate the primordial technique now, he also obtained information about the heaven-crushing realm from the grand word stone. There were a total of 9 transformations in the heaven-crushing realm, and they were referred to as the heaven-crushing 9 transformations. The heaven-crushing 9 transformations, and every advancement in the heaven-crushing 9 transformations was an earth-shattering transformation. This kind of transformation was from the inside to the outside, and also from the outside to the inside. The physical body and soul transformed at the same time. The part of the primordial technique in the grand word stone could only be cultivated to the heaven-crushing 6 transformations. In other words, if Zhuowen really reached the heaven-crushing 6 transformations in the future, he would reach a bottleneck unless he found a few other primordial stones. Zhuowen put away the grand word stone. He knew that the heaven-crushing realm was still a little far away for him. In the entire galaxy, he had never seen a true heaven-crushing realm cultivator. However, there was one thing that Zhuowen was certain of. When this galaxy was first formed, Pangu, who created the world, was infinitely close to the heaven-crushing realm. Unfortunately, Pangu didn't manage to break through the heaven-crushing realm in the end, and he died in the chaos. After Pangu's death, the 12 grand shamans and the 3 pure ones evolved, and countless living beings in the galaxy were born and prospered, developed to their current state. Although Zhuowen was a little disappointed that he was unable to cultivate the primordial grand mist technique, it was still a good thing for him. At least he had a clear direction for his future cultivation. Moreover, even though he was unable to cultivate the primordial grand mist chant in the grand word stone, he could still comprehend it. It would be extremely beneficial to his cultivation. After all, the primordial grand mist chant was a super cultivation technique that transcended the starry skies. The cultivation direction mentioned in it was definitely correct. While Zhuowen was comprehending it, he would definitely gain a lot of inspiration and constantly correct the problems in his cultivation. Let's refine the Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pill first. Zhuowen wasn't in a hurry to leave. Instead, he casually set up a defensive array in the mining area and took out the Emperor Pill Furnace to refine pills. The Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pill was a mid-stage, Heavenly Ascension class divine pill, which was most suitable for early-stage Heavenly Ascension cultivators. Because of this divine pill, an early-stage Heavenly Master cultivator would have a very high chance of breaking through to the mid-stage Heavenly Master realm. The main reason he refined the Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pill was to fulfill his promise to Qi Gaoming and Meiying. It took Zhuowen half a month to refine the Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pill. To his satisfaction, he succeeded in refining the Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pill on his first try. Moreover, after the pill was successfully refined, the quality of the divine pill had reached top grade. Zhuowen carefully placed the 12 Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pills into a jade bottle and stored them in the outside world. It's time to explore the Massacre Heavenly Domain's Forbidden Zone. Zhuowen stood up and walked out of the mining area. He didn't go straight to the Forbidden Zone, but went to the Quiet Sun Spirit City first. When he left the Quiet Sun Spirit City, Qi Gaoming had said that he wanted to go to the Forbidden Zone with Zhuowen. Naturally, he didn't want to break into the Forbidden Zone. Instead, he wanted to travel with Zhuowen, send Zhuowen to the Forbidden Zone, and tell Zhuowen about the situation inside the Forbidden Zone in detail. Qi Gaoming had also broken into the Forbidden Zone in the past, but he had always lingered around the Forbidden Zone's periphery, not daring to enter the Forbidden Zone's core. After returning to the Quiet Sun Spirit City, Qi Gaoming and Zhou Xiuwei were ready to go. Zhou Xiuwei was brought along by Zhuowen's suggestion. On the way to the Forbidden Zone, he planned to impart all his experiences to Zhou Xiuwei. Now that Zhou Xiuwei was his follower, he could be considered one of his people. The higher Zhou Xiuwei's array skills were, the more advantageous it would be for him. In addition, Zhou Xiuwei's array skills were at the peak of the good fortune realm. With Zhou Xiuwei's perception and the experience he imparted, it was only a matter of time before Zhou Xiuwei broke through to the great fortune realm. Brother Qi, this is the Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pill. Take it. Zhuowen took out 6 Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pills and handed them over to Qi Gaoming. It's actually the Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pill. Qi Gaoming held the 6 Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pills with both hands. His hands were trembling, his shoulders were shaking, and his face was full of excitement. He originally thought that Zhuowen's promise to him would be fulfilled in the future, but he did not expect that Zhuowen would refine such a divine pill so quickly. Qi Gaoming himself was at the early stage of the great fortune realm. He knew very well that the Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pills were too important to him, and he also found that these 6 Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pills were actually of unique quality. With these 6 Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pills, he believed that he would definitely be able to break through to the middle stage of the great fortune realm in the near future. Many thanks, Lord Zhuo. Qi Gaoming knelt on the ground and bowed 3 times to Zhuowen devoutly. Zhou Xiuwei, who was standing at the side, was full of envy. He knew better than Qi Gaoming how precious the Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pills were. He did not expect Zhuowen to give out 6 of them just like that. This was too generous. At the same time, Zhuowen's generous behavior made Qi Gaoming and Zhou Xiuwei acknowledge Zhuowen even more. They thought to themselves that they did not follow the wrong person. Zhuowen nodded and accepted Qi Gaoming's 3 kowtows. 6 Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pills were indeed worth Qi Gaoming's 3 kowtows. Let's go. Zhuowen took the dragon horse that Qi Gaoming brought over and leaped onto its back. He slapped the dragon horse's belly with his legs, and the dragon horse neighed and galloped forward. Qi Gaoming and Zhou Xiuwei followed closely behind. 7 days later, Zhuowen's group of 3 arrived at the Dark Rock Divine City. Meiying had already received news of Zhuowen's arrival, and he opened the city gates to welcome Zhuowen. Zhuowen noticed that other than Hao Rui from the Dragon Clan, Mei Su, Jiang Yi, and Great Guardianing Jia were not around. Meiying noticed the doubt in Zhuowen's eyes, and he said with a smile, "Celestial Master Zhuo, Mei Su, Jiang Yi, and Great Guardianing Jia have all returned to Hongxian Divine City. Hongxian Divine City is our headquarters after all, and it's impossible for there to be no one to lead it. Zhuowen nodded and said with a smile, City Lord Mei Ying can be considered to be riding on the crest of success now that you have 2 divine cities under your control. Mei Ying said seriously, Celestial Master Zhua, you can't say that. I've said it before. Dark Rock Divine City will always be yours. I'm only temporarily managing it for you. Chapter 3191. Forbidden Mountain Rangewen smiled and said, City Lord Mei Ying, are you so sure that I can leave the forbidden area alive? Mei Ying said seriously, Yes, I feel that you can definitely pass through the forbidden area. I can see the shadow of City Lord Ziwei in you, and I feel that you are even more heaven-defying than City Lord Ziwei. Qi Gaoming also nodded and said, Lord Zhua, I thought that City Lord Ziwei was already heaven-defying, but after seeing you, I know what true heaven-defying is. Zhuowen's eyes flashed. When he first entered the Massacre Heavenly Domain, he had heard of City Lord Ziwei from the Tian-Yi tribe. He had always suspected that City Lord Ziwei was the missing Purple Star Lord. Back then, he had asked Ghost Girl to describe City Lord Ziwei's appearance. Unfortunately, Ghost Girl was only the deputy head of a small tribe. She had only heard of City Lord Ziwei, but had never seen him before. Now that Qi Gaoming mentioned City Lord Ziwei again, Zhuowen knew that Mei Ying and Qi Gaoming should have seen City Lord Ziwei. Brother Qi, can you describe City Lord Ziwei's appearance? Zhuowen asked. Qi Gaoming was startled. Although he was confused about why Zhuowen would make such a request, he still did as he was told. After hearing Qi Gaoming's description, Zhuowen's eyes flashed. He was sure that the City Lord Ziwei described was the Purple Star Lord. Who would have thought that the Purple Star Sovereign, who had left without saying goodbye, would end up in the Massacre Heavenly Domain instead of the Heavenly Domain of Xianmi? However, Zhuowen was happy for the Purple Star Lord. Since he could build a divine city in the Massacre Heavenly Domain, it meant that the Purple Star Lord was at least at the early stage of the Heavenly Domain. However, Zhuowen was still worried for the Purple Star Lord. After passing through the Forbidden Area, he would go to the prehistoric Heavenly Domain. If he wanted to return to the Xianmi Heavenly Domain, he would have to sneak back through the secret passage in the prehistoric Heavenly Domain. And this secret passage had to be approved by the Black King. Thinking of the Black King, Zhuowen felt his teeth itch. That bastard was truly despicable. He actually dared to trick him. He had clearly guessed the Black King's riddle correctly, but the Black King still lured him into the Massacre Celestial region. After Qi Gaoming noticed that Zhuowen's expression had turned ugly, his voice became a little cautious. In his heart, he wondered if City Lord Ziwei was Master Zhuo's enemy. After Zhuowen came back to his senses, he took out the remaining 6 Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pills from his great world and handed them to Mei Ying. City Lord Mei Ying, I just refined these Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pills not long ago. They will be of great help to you in breaking through to the mid-stage of the Heaven Ascension Master Realm. Mei Ying received the 6 Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pills. Her delicate body was trembling with excitement. She bowed to Zhuowen and said, Immortal Master Zhua, thank you so much. These Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pills are indeed very important to me. I won't stand on ceremony. In the future, if Immortal Master Zhua has any orders, I, Mei Ying, will definitely go through fire and water to complete them for you. Originally, Mei Ying wanted to decline. However, the Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pills were crucial to her advancement. Such an item was too tempting for her. How could she be willing to decline? City Lord Mei Ying, you are too courteous. I have promised you before. Naturally, I won't go back on my words. I won't be entering the Dark Rock Divine City. I plan to go directly to the forbidden area. Zhuowen flipped over and leaped onto the dragon horse. He waved goodbye to Mei Ying. Mei Ying also leaped onto the dragon horse and caught up to Zhuowen. She said in a deep voice, "Immortal Master Zhua, I will also follow you to the forbidden area. I plan to send you off." Zhuowen nodded and laughed. "Thank you, City Lord Mei Ying. Let's set off now." As he spoke, Zhuowen pulled on the reins and sped away. Qi Gaoming, Yang Shiwei, and Mei Ying followed closely behind. The forbidden area of the massacre, Heavenly Territory, was the giant mountain at the end of the Heavenly Territory. Previously, when Zhuowen was in the mining area, he had used the torch dragon's eye technique to see the giant mountain. The giant mountain was a 2-month journey from the Dark Rock Divine City. In these 2 months, Zhuowen and the other 3 rode at full speed. During their rest periods, Zhuowen and Yang Shiwei would discuss their experiences in formations. At the same time, Zhuowen also imparted to Yang Shiwei all his experiences in advancing to the Heaven Crossing Level God Master Stage. Occasionally, Zhuowen would also discuss matters of cultivation with Mei Ying and Qi Gaoming. Learning from each other's cultivation experience would be beneficial to his future cultivation. 2 months later, Zhuowen and the rest stopped in their tracks. Zhuowen rode on the dragon horse and looked at the towering black mountain in front of him. His eyes were solemn. "Immortal Master Zhua, this forbidden area is known as the Forbidden Death Mountain. There are 3 sections: the foothills, the mountainside, and the peak. The foothills of the Forbidden Death Mountain are what we call the outer area. It's also the area with the lowest risk factor." Mei Ying came to Zhuowen's side and looked cautiously at the mountain that looked like a crouching beast. Moreover, the inner area of the Forbidden Death Mountain is filled with dense sword qi all year round. The deeper you go, the more terrifying the sword qi is. In the past, there was a peak creator who tried to enter the mountainside area. He was immediately torn into a bloody mist by the terrifying sword qi inside. Qi Gaoming also came to Zhuowen's side and looked warily at the giant black mountain in front of him. "There's sword qi inside. Do you know where this sword qi came from?" Zhuowen asked in astonishment. Qi Gaoming shook his head and said, "I'm not sure either. I suspect that there might be a peerless divine sword sealed inside this giant mountain. It's also possible that a peak sword Dao expert died in this mountain. Anyway, these are all my guesses. After all, I've never entered the depths of the Forbidden Death Mountain. With my current strength, I can only enter the mountainside at most. Moreover, I can't completely guarantee my safety." Mei Ying interrupted and said, "City Lord Qi is right. The sword qi in the Forbidden Death Mountain is very terrifying. However, if you observe carefully, Immortal Master Zhua, not every place in the Forbidden Death Mountain has dense sword qi. Some places have thinner sword qi. When the time comes, you can go in and observe carefully before taking action. Besides, there are many precious divine herbs and refining materials in the Forbidden Death Mountain. There are also many rare cultivation resources in the outside world. It's a treasure land that many cultivators would go crazy for." Zhuowen nodded slightly. After knowing that the Candle Dragon had died in the Forbidden Death Mountain, Zhuowen knew that the Forbidden Death Mountain was a rare treasure land. Moreover, he had seen the map and knew that the Candle Dragon's corpse was in the deepest part of the Forbidden Death Mountain, which was the mountainside area. "City Lord Mei Ying, Brother Qi, and Master Zhou, let's part ways here. I'll enter the Forbidden Death Mountain now." Zhuowen jumped down from the dragon horse and cupped his fists at Mei Ying, Qi Gaoming, and Zhou Shiwei. He then walked toward the giant black mountain in front of him without looking back. Mei Ying and the other 2 looked at each other, and there was a worried look in their eyes. City Lord Maying, do you think Master Zhua can successfully pass through the Forbidden Death Mountain? Zhou Xiaowei asked hesitantly. Actually, I'm not sure. Although Master Zhua's performance is demonic, it's only in terms of formation Dao and Pill Dao. If it's a real battle, he might not be as good as City Lord Ziwei. Qi Gaoming said in a deep voice. Chapter 3192. Entering the Forbidden Death Mountain Range. The cry of the mountain soul? Qi Gaoming muttered to himself. Yes, the cry of the mountain soul. When City Lord Ziwei broke through the Forbidden Death Mountain Range alone, only a few people knew about it. Even we didn't know. But when City Lord Ziwei completely broke through the Forbidden Death Mountain Range, the Forbidden Death Mountain Range let out a loud cry that spread throughout the massacre heavenly domain. It's the cry of the mountain soul. At that time, the news of City Lord Ziwei breaking through the Forbidden Death Mountain Range spread throughout the massacre heavenly domain. Mei Ying's beautiful eyes flickered, and her voice was slightly excited. Yes, back then, when the cry of the mountain soul resounded throughout the massacre heavenly domain, everyone was shocked. No one thought that after countless years, there would be someone who could really break through the Forbidden Death Mountain Range and leave the massacre heavenly domain. Well, Lord will be the second person, but with Lord Zhua's talent and strength, even if he can't break through, he can still return safely. Qi Gaoming muttered to himself. Mei shook her head and sneered. City Lord Qi, you're wrong. Immortal Master Zhua is definitely stronger than City Lord Ziwei back then. He can definitely break through the Forbidden Death Mountain Range. Mei and Zhuowen had worked together several times. Her deepest impression was when they teamed up to deal with the powerful green skeleton in the Death Valley. At that time, she was already helpless. It was Zhuowen who used an unprecedented trump card and finally defeated the green skeleton. At that time, Zhuowen was only an eternal overlord. Now, Zhuowen's cultivation had advanced again and stepped into the third step of Dao validation. She believed that Zhuowen's strength would become even more terrifying. She couldn't imagine that such a powerful and terrifying person couldn't break through the Forbidden Death Mountain Range. Qi Gaoming shook his head. He didn't agree with Mei Ying's confidence. He felt that although Zhuowen was powerful, he wasn't as terrifying as City Lord Ziwei. Mei Ying saw the disagreement in Qi Gaoming's eyes, but she didn't continue. She knew very well that Qi Gaoming didn't understand Zhuowen at all. Arguing with Qi Gaoming now was like playing the lute to a cow. The cry of the mountain soul will resound throughout the massacre heavenly domain in the near future. Mei Ying leaped onto her dragon horse and left. Qi Gaoming looked calmly at Mei Ying's back as he left. His lips curled into a cold smile. Governor, Mei Ying is really presumptuous. He doesn't respect us at all. Zhou Xiaowei said with an unfriendly expression. Mei Ying used her beauty to bewitch Master Zhua and made him do so many things for her. However, now that Lord Zhua has left, we won't be bewitched by this slut. Qi Gaoming sneered. City Lord, what do you mean? Zhou Xiaowei's eyes flashed. The Dark Rock Divine City is Lord Zhua's divine city, and we are his followers. Naturally, the Dark Rock Divine City should be managed by us. Who is this Mei Ying? He actually controls Dark Rock Divine City. There's also Hong Xian Divine City. There's no need for this divine city to continue existing. If possible, Hong Xian Divine City should also be destroyed. Qi Gaoming said with a faint smile. But Governor, Mei Ying and Master Zhua have a good relationship. If you touch her, won't Master Zhua blame you when he returns? Zhou Xiaowei said worriedly. You don't have to worry about this. We are Master Zhua's followers, his people. Mei Ying is just an outsider. If we touch Mei Ying, Masters will definitely stand on our side. Qi Gaoming's eyes flashed with arrogance as he continued. Moreover, after we go back and cultivate in seclusion for a period of time, my cultivation will skyrocket to the middle stage of the Tongtian Master Realm, and your array skills will also reach the Tongtian Master Realm. At that time, in the entire Massacre Heavenly region, who will be a match for us? Even if Master Zhuo comes personally, he will have to be careful. Moreover, he may not be able to return. Divine Master Zhou, if we want to continue to become stronger, then we need more resources. If we want more resources, just the quiet Sun Divine City alone is not enough. Zhou Xiuwei's eyes narrowed and flickered. Finally, he nodded and said, Governor, you are right. In the Massacre Heavenly region, without resources, we can't continue to improve. As long as we are strong enough, even if Master Zhuo returns, we will still have a bargaining chip to negotiate with him. Qi Gaoming nodded. He was very satisfied with Zhou Xiuwei's understanding of the situation. Let's go back to the quiet Sun Divine City and cultivate in seclusion. After we both break through, the entire Massacre Heavenly region will change. Qi Gaoming leaped onto the dragon horse and left with Zhou Xiuwei. Zhuowen naturally did not know the real thoughts of Qi Gaoming and Zhou Xiuwei. He had already entered the entrance of the Forbidden Death Mountain. The entrance of the Forbidden Death Mountain was located in the bushes at the foot of the mountain. The moment Zhuowen pushed the bushes aside and entered the Forbidden Death Mountain, he immediately felt waves of sharp sword qi sweeping towards his body. Countless sword qi swept across. Zhuowen's face changed slightly. He immediately activated his Pangu's sacred body, which emitted a sparkling light. Waves of sword qi blasted on Zhuowen's body. The terrifying tearing feeling made Zhuowen's eyes crack with pain. However, the Pangu's sacred body was indeed powerful, especially after reaching the peak of 6 stars. The hardness of the Pangu's sacred body had reached an extremely terrifying level. The sword qi blasted on the Pangu's sacred body. Although it made Zhuowen's eyes crack with pain, it did not completely break through the surface of the Pangu's sacred body. It only left blood-red spots on the surface of the Pangu's sacred body. These were the tiny wounds caused by the sword qi tearing the surface of the body. Zhuowen's eyes turned solemn. He had just entered the Forbidden Death Mountain, and the sword qi was already so terrifying. If he really went deeper, wouldn't it be terrible? After getting used to the sword qi here, Zhuowen took large strides forward. He had to pass through the foothills and the mountainside to enter the peak. This was because the map he had obtained indicated that the corpse of the Candle Dragon was inside the peak of the Forbidden Death Mountain. Whoosh! Zhuowen walked in the foothills for half an hour. Suddenly, the rustling of leaves came from the surroundings. The rustling was soft but dense. Zhuowen stopped and looked around. Unfortunately, the Forbidden Death Mountain was shrouded in countless towering black trees. These black trees were very strange. They seemed to be able to absorb all the light and create eternal darkness. It was pitch black all around. Zhuowen could not see the scenery around him at all. He could only see about 1 meter ahead of him. The rustling of leaves became more frequent and closer. However, Zhuowen could not see what was making the rustling sound. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Suddenly, 3 black figures darted from behind Zhuowen and rushed towards Zhuowen's back. Zhuowen kicked with his right foot and immediately dodged the attack from behind. But very quickly, several even more terrifying black shadows flashed out from the left and right, enveloping Zhuowen's body and attacking his vital points. Torch Dragon's eyes. Zhuowen's eyes were cold. He used the Torch Dragon's eyes, and 2 sun-like eyeballs rose behind him. Chapter 30, 193. When the blazing light appeared, the black shadows that were originally rushing towards Zhuo cried out in alarm and retreated continuously after sensing the light from the torch dragon's eye. Only then did Zhuo see clearly that the dark shadows that attacked him were dark creatures the size of squirrels. These dark creatures had sharp black spikes all over their bodies. Their eyes were red, and their sharp teeth seemed to be able to tear through any material. At this moment, the dark creatures fled one after another. They looked at Zhuo with their red eyes in fear. To be more precise, they were looking at the torch dragon eye behind Zhuo. Zhuo was quick to react. He grabbed the dark creature that had attacked him just now and tore it into pieces with a violent tug. The rest of the dark creatures were terrified of the torch dragon eye behind Zhuo. They fled one after another, trying to escape the range of the torch dragon eye. Unfortunately, Zhuo wouldn't let these dark creatures do as they wished. His figure was like lightning and a ghost as he flashed through the dark forest. Every time he flashed, he would take the life of a dark creature. When Zhuo finished dealing with the last dark creature, he stopped. The torch dragon eye behind him dimmed and hid in the darkness. The torch dragon eye could control the energy of light and darkness, and it could switch between the two forms. The eye of light burst out with the most blazing light, illuminating the land. It had the brightest vision and could make all creatures temporarily lose their vision, making them unable to see anything clearly. On the other hand, the eye of darkness was silent. It was like a lonely traveler in the darkness. It moved forward quietly and could obtain all the vision in the darkness. Zhuo used the eye of light at the beginning. The intense light and the terrifying pressure of the torch dragon eye immediately frightened the dark creatures so much that they didn't dare to resist. Now, Zhuo was using the eye of darkness. In this forbidden mountain area, there were many dangers. The eye of light was too eye-catching and could easily attract the attention of powerful creatures. After switching to the eye of darkness, Zhuo's vision immediately widened. He could see tiny things hundreds of meters away in the darkness. With a thought, Zhuo immediately widened the vision of the eye of darkness from hundreds of meters to more than 1,000 meters. After reaching this vision, Zhuo was relieved. Within 1,000 meters, he could react in time, no matter how fast the creatures were. Moreover, the eye of darkness didn't consume as much energy as the eye of light. Therefore, Zhuo decided to use the eye of darkness to pass through the forbidden mountain area. After observing the surroundings, Zhuo found no danger within 1,000 meters. Zhuo then continued to move forward. As he went deeper, the sword qi became more and more terrifying. Injuries began to appear on Zhuo's body. However, these injuries were nothing. Zhuo walked to the end of the foothill. In front of him, there was a huge stone tablet erected. The stone tablet was connected to the border between the mountainside and the foothills. The surface of the stone tablet was engraved with complex and mysterious patterns. What attracted Zhuo the most was not the stone tablet, but the small herb garden below it. The herb garden was very small. There were only about a dozen divine herbs in it. The reason why it attracted Zhuo's attention was that the lowest level of divine herbs in the herb garden was creation level. In addition, there were 3 heaven-level divine herbs. Unity spiritual herb. Zhuo narrowed his eyes and immediately recognized the 3 stalks of heaven-class divine herbs in the middle of the herb garden. Weren't they the unification spiritual herbs that Mei Ying had taken out previously? Zhuo took a step into the small herb garden. With a wave of his hand, all the divine herbs, including the 3 unity spiritual herbs, were stored in Zhuo's macro world. However, Zhuo did not notice that the moment he stored the divine herbs in the herb garden, the patterns on the surface of the stone tablet lit up. Then, the patterns on the surface of the stone tablet separated and erupted into a terrifying storm of sword chi. It swept toward Zhuowen at lightning speed like an angry dragon. Zhuowen's face changed slightly. He immediately noticed the storm of sword chi that swept out from the stone tablet. He immediately stepped back with his right foot. The storm of sword chi brushed past Zhuowen's chest and slammed into the small herb garden that Zhuowen had been in. The terrifying tearing force of the storm exploded, and the small herb garden was blasted into smithereens. QL11 Zhuowen's chest was badly mutilated. The storm of sword chi was extremely powerful. Although he was only affected by the aftermath, Zhuowen's chest injury was quite serious. After Zhuowen landed, a green light appeared on his chest, and the badly mutilated wound began to slowly heal. Zhuowen's eyes were full of fear. In this darkness, without vision, the storm of sword chi was simply a scourge that could do anything. If Zhuowen did not rely on the eye of darkness to see 1,000 meters, he was afraid that the storm of sword chi would succeed in its sneak attack. At that time, it would not be as simple as his chest being badly mutilated. Boom! Suddenly, the ground under Zhuowen's feet exploded. Zhuowen's face was ugly. He used the space-time power and disappeared. Under Zhuowen's feet, the storm of sword chi whizzed out and broke the ground like an angry dragon. It seems that this is the checkpoint between the foothills and the mountainside that Qi Gaoming mentioned. If I want to enter the mountainside, I have to destroy this storm of sword chi. Zhuowen's eyes were solemn. He took a step forward and pinched the void with both hands. He used the profound sky-splitting blade. Holding the powerful sky-splitting blade with both hands, he slashed out. The terrifying saber chi was like countless storms that exploded and ruthlessly slashed at the storm of sword chi. Bang! The storm of sword chi was destroyed, but soon it absorbed the surrounding sword chi and formed an even more terrifying storm of sword chi. Zhuowen's face was ugly. This storm of sword chi was too strange. It could absorb the surrounding sword chi to replenish itself. Didn't that mean that the storm of sword chi could not be destroyed in an environment of sword chi? However, Zhuowen did not have time to think about it. The storm of sword chi swept over again. Zhuowen had no choice but to meet it head-on. He used the sky-splitting blade with both hands to wildly slash out. Countless saber chi crisscrossed, almost no weaker than the storm of sword chi. Boom! The sky-splitting blade and the storm of sword chi collided and exploded with terrifying energy. Zhuowen was directly sent flying and smashed to the ground. The sky-splitting blade with both hands shattered, and the storm of sword chi completely dissipated into nothingness. Zhuowen fell to the ground and saw that in the midst of the dissipated storm of sword chi, there was a globe formed by countless lines. Zhuowen's eyes lit up. The lines on the globe were not unfamiliar to Zhuowen. They were the lines on the surface of the stone tablet. The globe was constantly rotating, and the surrounding sword chi was summoned and gathered on the surface of the globe. Soon, a powerful storm of sword chi was formed. It seems that I have to destroy the globe formed by the lines. Zhuowen's eyes burst with light. He suddenly jumped up and formed a seal with both hands. At the same time, he used the sky-splitting blade, the mysterious light of creation, and the death of heaven and earth. The sky-splitting blade and the death of heaven and earth combined to form a blade of light. It was filled with terrifying destructive power that made people tremble in fear. The mysterious light of creation covered the surface of Zhuowen's body, forming a powerful defensive veil. He was definitely going to go all out this time. He could not afford to waste time with the storm of sword chi. Whoosh! Zhuowen stomped his right foot and rushed out. The sky-splitting blade with both hands blasted out. The destructive power exploded. and the storm of sword chi was directly shattered into countless fine powder, revealing the globe within. Zhuowen groaned and was sent flying with blood at the corner of his mouth. Chapter 3194, the second Steely Bang. When the sphere was hit by the chi-splitting blade, all kinds of patterns on its body burst open and finally collapsed into countless fine powder. After the sphere collapsed, the sword chi storm that was about to condense also collapsed and scattered into sword chi that wandered around in disorder. At the same time, Zhuowen noticed that the steel that stood at the border between the foothills and the mountainside collapsed and turned into dust. The boundary between the foothills and the mountainside also disappeared with the steel. Zhuowen landed on the steel fragments and was surprised to find that there was almost no sword chi there. This was the best place to rest. Zhuowen sat cross-legged on the steel and began to recover the energy of the way of heaven. At the same time, the injuries on his body were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. When Zhuowen was in the best state, Zhuowen stood up and looked at the mountainside in front of him with a serious look. Although he had not completely entered the mountainside, he could feel that the sword chi there was much stronger than the one at the foothills. Zhuowen did not dare to be careless. He burst out the power of the Pangu's sacred body and stepped into the mountainside. The dense sword chi fell on Zhuowen like a heavy rain, leaving bloody marks on Zhuowen's body. Zhuowen had only taken a few hundred steps when his entire body was covered in blood. Although Zhuowen seemed to be seriously injured, he knew that these were only superficial wounds. The peak 6-star Pangu's sacred body was not simple. Although the sword chi was terrifying, it was not enough to hurt the foundation of the Pangu's sacred body. With the strong recovery ability of the Pangu's sacred body, these superficial wounds could be completely healed in the blink of an eye. However, Zhuowen did not heal them. This was the slaughter heavenly realm, not the outside world, where the way of heaven was scarce. If Zhuowen wanted to heal these superficial wounds, he would have to consume a lot of energy. Since the foundation was not hurt, Zhuowen did not want to waste energy to heal these superficial wounds. After all, heavenly energy was very precious in this forbidden death mountain, where sword chi was everywhere. Zhuowen wasn't willing to waste it. Zhuowen walked for several hundred meters. His eyes flickered, and he leaped onto the trunk of the nearest black, towering tree. He crouched down and tried his best to conceal his aura. Boom, boom. Thunderous footsteps were transmitted from a short distance away. Soon after, Zhuowen saw a black bull that was dozens of feet tall walking towards him from the depths of the dense forest with heavy footsteps. The black bull's aura was terrifying, causing Zhuowen to tremble in fear. This was definitely an exotic beast with the strength of a master of the heavens. If Zhuowen were to fight this exotic beast head-on, he might be able to kill it, but the price he would have to pay would be extremely heavy. The reason Zhuowen could discover the terrifying black bull in advance was naturally because of the torch dragon's eye. The torch dragon's eye could silently give Zhuowen a vision of 1,000 meters. Even the creatures in the Forbidden Death Mountain probably couldn't reach such a distance. After the black bull left, Zhuowen heaved a sigh of relief. He observed the surroundings again, and after confirming that there were no other dangers in the surroundings, he continued to move forward. Zhuowen was now very glad that he had refined the torch dragon's eye. If it weren't for it, Zhuowen would definitely not be able to move an inch in the Forbidden Death Mountain. Even his sense of direction would be wrong. Along the way, he had already discovered that there were many terrifying creatures in the Forbidden Death Mountain, and there were quite a few of them. Moreover, Zhuowen also discovered some extremely terrifying creatures. These creatures were at least at the early stage of the Heaven's Master. Zhuowen even discovered that a few of them might be at the middle stage of the Heaven's Master. This made Zhuowen tremble with fear. He wondered what kind of place the Forbidden Death Mountain was, and how could there be so many terrifying creatures? Moreover, according to Zhuowen's observations during this period of time, he found that these creatures in the Forbidden Death Mountain were like walking corpses. They didn't seem to have independent intelligence, and just wandered aimlessly in the Forbidden Death Mountain. This made Zhuowen think of the undead, but the strength of these creatures in the Forbidden Death Mountain was many times more terrifying than that of ordinary undead. This was also thanks to the fact that these creatures didn't have any intelligence. If these powerful creatures had intelligence, Zhuowen wouldn't have been able to avoid them so easily with the Torch Dragon's eye. Moreover, Zhuowen also found that the terrifying sword qi around the Forbidden Death Mountain turned a blind eye to these creatures wandering inside and didn't attack them at all. These sword energies only repelled foreign creatures, and they wanted to kill them. Zhuowen knew that if he got entangled with these creatures here, not only would it attract the attention of other creatures, but it would also be extremely unfavorable to him. Therefore, he was very vigilant along the way, trying not to have a head-on conflict with the creatures in the Forbidden Death Mountain, and avoiding them as much as possible. Soon, Zhuowen saw the junction between the mountain peak and the mountainside not far away. The junction between the mountain peak and the mountainside was similar to the junction between the foothills and the mountainside. There was also a stone tablet, but this stone tablet was taller than the previous one. The lines on the surface of the stone tablet were more complicated than the previous one. They were densely packed and intertwined with each other, as complex as the meridians of the human body. Not far from the stone tablet, Zhuowen saw another medicine garden. This medicine garden was several times larger than the previous one, and there were many more divine medicines in it, at least nearly 100. What surprised Zhuowen even more was that there were 3 kinds of divine medicines in this medicine garden, 3 of each kind, for a total of 9. However, to Zhuowen's disappointment, none of these 3 transcending heaven-grade divine herbs were the materials needed to refine the 6 Desires spirit-condensing saint pill. The 6 divine medicines of the 6 Desires spirit-congealing saint pill with 1,000-year flowerless eyes, red pill sun red, blazing phoenix, exquisite leaf, Buddha yellow water bamboo, 3 realms flower chinyu, and scarlet moon star wave milk. Zhuowen had already obtained the 1,000-year flowerless eyes, red pill sun red, Buddha yellow water bamboo, and scarlet moon star wave milk, these 4 divine medicines. He still lacked the blazing phoenix exquisite leaf and 3 realms flower chinyu. Unfortunately, there were no blazing phoenix exquisite leaf and 3 realms flower chinyu in this medicine garden. Zhuowen also knew the 3 divine medicines in the medicine garden. They were Suhi vanilla, Tianhun snow lotus, and Tai gold black dragon bamboo. These 3 divine medicines were relatively common. Their value might be lower than the unity spiritual grass. However, they were still divine medicines of the heaven level. In the outside world, they were precious medicinal herbs that were hard to find. Zhuowen looked at the stone tablet with fear. A faint brilliance enveloped his body. It was the profound creation, mysterious light. He had just learned his lesson. He would not make the same mistake twice. He knew that if he picked the divine medicines in the medicine garden, he would definitely trigger the stone tablet. At that time, some kind of powerful force would attack him, just like the sword qi storm. The person who set up the stone tablet and the medicine garden also knew that the intruders would definitely enter the medicine garden to pick the divine medicines, even if they knew that it was a trap. Zhuowen was very clear about this. However, he still planned to enter the medicine garden. He knew that with his ability, he could safely leave after picking the divine medicines in the medicine garden. Whoosh! Zhuowen's right foot pushed off the ground. Like an arrow that had left a bow, he shot out explosively and charged into the medicine garden in an instant. Zhuowen waved his hand. Nearly 100 divine medicines in the medicine garden were all stored in Zhuowen's macro world. Crack. Chapter 3195. Sword Chi Giant Whoosh. An intense sonic boom rang out. Zhuowen had just finished collecting all the divine medicines when he sensed the terrifying sound of wind sweeping over from behind him. It blew at the ends of his hair, causing it to flutter. A strong sense of danger made Zhuowen involuntarily twist his waist in the air. His feet kicked out repeatedly in the air, and he twisted his body like an agile fish. A gust of wind swept past his waist and directly blasted into the herb garden. Zhuowen looked over and found that on the bare ground of the herb garden there was a long halberd formed by sharp sword chi. Zhuowen was puzzled. When the stone tablet shattered, it formed a powerful storm of sword chi, which was extremely powerful. But now, the second stone tablet formed a long halberd, and Zhuowen could feel that this long halberd was much weaker than the storm of sword chi. This did not make sense, but soon Zhuowen felt that something was wrong. An even more powerful sound of something breaking through the air blasted towards him from behind. Zhuowen forcefully twisted his body in the nick of time. He immediately saw the sound of something breaking through the air. It was a tall and sturdy giant who was at least 3 meters tall, punching towards him. And this giant was formed by sword chi. Its entire body was covered in sword chi, and it looked like an illusory figure. But the powerful aura of the giant made Zhuowen tremble in fear. The giant was too fast. Zhuowen only had time to protect his chest with his hands. Then, the giant's fist had already heavily smashed onto Zhuowen's hands. Boom! Zhuowen was directly sent flying and heavily smashed into the ground, creating a huge crater. The sword chi giant did not stop at all. It suddenly landed on the herb garden, and the terrifying force caused the ground to tremble violently. Then, the sword chi giant pulled out the sword chi halberd from the ground and chased after Zhuowen in big steps. The halberd in its hand danced, and a series of halberd shadows swept out, turning into a sharp spiral chi, rushing towards Zhuowen's vital points. Zhuowen pinched the air with both hands. At the same time, he utilized his profound sky-opening blade and heaven and earth perish. 2 massive blades of light, filled with a destructive aura, appeared in his hands. Bang, bang, bang. Zhuowen stomped on the ground with his right foot and instantly exchanged more than 10 moves with the sword chi giant. Every move was fierce and terrifying. The aftermath of the battle spread out in all directions. The more Zhuowen fought, the more shocked he became. The strength of this sword chi giant was much more terrifying than the sword chi storm from before. Zhuowen exploded with all his strength, but he was still suppressed by this sword chi giant. Furthermore, the sword chi giant was able to manipulate the surrounding sword chi. Every time Zhuowen fought with the sword chi giant, he would have to endure the destruction and cutting of the surrounding sword chi. At this moment, Zhuowen's body was almost a bloody mess. In some places, his bones were even beginning to show. The surrounding sword chi was so terrifying that even Zhuowen's Panga's sacred body had been reduced to such a miserable state. While fighting, Zhuowen frantically absorbed the origin crystals of the heavenly way in the macro world. His injuries began to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. However, the surrounding sword chi was too violent. Not long after Zhuowen's injuries recovered, he was immediately torn into a bloody mess by the sword chi. All of a sudden, the sword chi giant's fist blasted towards Zhuowen's face. Zhuowen's expression changed slightly. He slashed with the sky-opening blade in his hand and cut off the sword chi giant's right fist. Zhuowen did not look proud at all. Instead, he looked deeply regretful. This was because when he cut off the sword Qi giant's right fist, he also exposed a flaw in his chest. The sword Qi giant saw this flaw. He raised the halberd in his right hand and stabbed it into Zhuowen's abdomen, nailing Zhuowen to the ground. At the same time, the sword Qi giant kicked forward with his right foot and punched at Zhuowen's chest with his remaining left fist. The power of this punch was too terrifying. It was earth-shattering. The surrounding sword Qi also surged and raged, pouring down on Zhuowen like a wave. Destiny space-time kill. Zhuowen made a prompt decision and used Destiny space-time annihilation. A long purple river shot out from space-time and circled around Zhuowen, forming a constantly flowing purple river as a defense. Bang! The sword Qi giant punched the purple river, and a powerful force exploded. Countless purple water droplets splashed out from the purple river like gorgeous purple fireworks. The sword Qi giant's punching speed also slowed down a lot. His punch was obviously affected by the Destiny space-time kill. Zhuowen took advantage of this gap to pull out the sword Qi halberd and immediately retreated. Boom! The moment he retreated, the sword Qi giant unleashed a terrifying torrent of sword Qi, which actually drowned the entire area where the purple river was. The purple river collapsed, and the sword Qi giant chased after Zhuowen with large strides. Its red eyes were filled with killing intent. Zhuowen had no choice but to take out the Ho-I Godly Bow and Ho-I Godly Arrow from the outside world. Before the sword Qi giant could reach him, he shot out the Ho-I Godly Arrow. Immediately, the Ho-I Godly Arrow turned into a red streak of light and shot out with soaring killing intent. Boom! Ho-I's divine arrow landed directly on the giant's chest. A terrifying intent of killing exploded, and the giant's chest was blasted apart, dispersing into nothingness. Although half of the sword Qi giant's chest had exploded, Zhuowen was not happy at all. He knew very well that the sword Qi giant had a pattern core. If he didn't destroy the pattern core, the sword Qi giant would be an unkillable cockroach. The Ho-I Godly Arrow exploded the sword Qi giant's chest, but Zhuowen didn't see the pattern core on its chest. Clearly, the pattern core wasn't in the sword Qi giant's chest. The surrounding sword Qi swept out and entered the sword Qi giant's chest. The sword Qi giant's exploded chest immediately recovered. The sword Qi giant stood up again and stared at Zhuowen with its red eyes. It continued to chase after Zhuowen. After knowing how terrifying the sword Qi giant was, Zhuowen didn't dare to fight the sword Qi giant head-on. That was simply courting death. He controlled the power of space-time, and his speed was much faster than the sword Qi giant. He could use his speed to wear down the sword Qi giant. After figuring this out, Zhuowen stomped his right foot, and the purple river appeared under his feet. His figure immediately drifted and disappeared from the spot like a ghost. When Zhuowen reappeared, he was already beside the Ho-I Godly Arrow that the sword Qi giant had casually thrown on the ground. Zhuowen picked up the Ho-I Godly Arrow and knocked it on the bowstring again. This time, he aimed at the sword Qi giant's abdomen. Whoosh! The Godly Arrow flew out and pierced the sword Qi giant's abdomen. Unfortunately, Zhuowen still didn't find the pattern core. Next, Zhuowen continued to use the power of space-time to avoid the sword Qi giant's pursuit and constantly shot out godly arrows. Arms, knees, crotch, neck. Every time Zhuowen shot out the Ho-I Godly Arrow, he aimed at different parts of the sword Qi giant and shot through the corresponding parts. Unfortunately, he didn't find the pattern core he was looking for. Roar! The sword Qi giant was furious. Countless sword Qi fused into its body, and its body expanded from 10 feet to 15 feet. When the sword Qi giant flew out again, its speed was much faster than before and almost caught up with Zhuowen. Zhuowen looked worried. He knocked the bowstring again and looked at the sword Qi giant that was getting closer and closer. He didn't dodge and aimed at the sword chi giant's forehead this time. He had a feeling that the pattern core must be deep in the sword chi giant's forehead. Whoosh! The godly arrow flew out and rushed into the sword chi giant's forehead. Chapter 3196. Strange bird. The moment the core of the pattern was exposed to the air, Zhuowen quickly took out the second Ho-E sacred arrow from his macro world, knocked it on the bowstring, and pulled it into a full moon shape. Whoosh! The Ho-E sacred arrow pierced through the air and hit the core of the pattern when it was completely enveloped by the sword chi. With a cracking sound, the core of the pattern shattered into pieces. Then, the Ho-E sacred arrow shot backward, passing through many towering black trees and finally nailing itself to the trunk of the last black tree. After the core of the pattern shattered, the sword chi that had been recondensed collapsed. Zhuowen put away the two Ho-E sacred arrows and immediately arrived at the broken stone tablet. There was almost no sword chi in this place. Zhuowen spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face was pale. He sat down cross-legged and took out several creation level healing pills from his macro world. After taking them, he looked much better. At the same time, Zhuowen took out a large pile of Heavenly Way origin crystals from his macro world and frantically absorbed the Heavenly Way energy in them. With the help of the Heavenly Way energy, he began to heal the terrible injuries on his body. Zhuowen's physical injuries were extremely serious. He looked like a man of blood, covered in blood. Moreover, there were many huge wounds on his body. In these wounds, the white bones inside were exposed. He looked extremely miserable. At this moment, with the help of the Heavenly Way energy, these terrible wounds were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. After the wounds were completely healed, the coagulated blood scabs on the surface of Zhuowen's body fell off, revealing a perfect body that looked like it was carved out of jade. After the wounds on his body healed, Zhuowen was surprised to find that the Pangu's sacred body had become tougher than before, as if it had been reborn. It seems that being tortured by the sword chi is not always a bad thing. Zhuowen muttered to himself in a self-deprecating manner. After he was in his best condition, Zhuowen stood up again. His eyes were like lightning as he looked at the mountain peak in front of him where the stone tablet was broken. His gaze became somewhat serious. He looked at the peak of the mountain. Mei Ying had told him that the exit to the Massacre Heavenly Domain was at the peak of the Forbidden Death Mountain. However, according to the map that he had obtained, the place that led him to the Candle Dragon's corpse was not the peak of the Forbidden Death Mountain. Instead, it was located at the northeast corner of the mountain. There was a symbol of an altar there. Zhuowen knew that the altar should be the space where the Candle Dragon's corpse had fallen. Just like the place where Gonggong had fallen, it existed in an independent small world. Zhuowen took out the map and looked at it a few times. After confirming that the location of the Candle Dragon's corpse was correct, he put the map away and stepped into the mountain. What terrifying sword chi! The moment he entered the mountain range, Zhuowen could feel the violent sword chi around him. His body was immediately torn apart by the sword chi, causing him to bleed incessantly. The sword chi in the mountain range was too terrifying. Zhuowen could only endure the sword chi, while circulating his heavenly Tao energy to speed up the recovery of his body. The tearing of the sword chi and the recovery of his body reached a delicate balance. However, this was very draining for Zhuowen. After walking for a while, Zhuowen had to stop and rest. He also had to absorb the heavenly Tao origin crystals in the great world to replenish his energy. Zhuowen could not imagine how he could make it to the peak of the Forbidden Death Mountain if he could not open his great world. At the same time, Zhuowen thought of Crepe Myrtle Star. Crepe Myrtle Star had managed to make it through the Forbidden Death Mountain on his own. How powerful was Crepe Myrtle Star now? After almost recovering, Zhuowen continued on his journey. The torch dragon's eye on his back was always open to observe his surroundings. The black trees at the peak of the mountain were much denser than at the foot of the mountain and the mountainside. The visibility here was also much worse than at the foot of the mountain and the mountainside. Zhuowen suddenly stopped in his tracks. Then he rolled over and hid in a small depression not far from his left. The moment Zhuowen hid in the depression, a loud rustling of leaves sounded out of nowhere. A huge two-winged bird that was thousands of feet long swept across the dense forest. Then, the two-winged bird stopped above the dense forest and circled above the depression. It let out an unpleasant cry that was like that of an owl. It was terrifying. Zhuowen hid in the depression with an ugly expression. Could it be that he had been discovered by the bird? It actually stopped in the air and did not leave. Zhuowen saw the full appearance of the two-winged bird through the torch dragon's eye. His expression turned even uglier. The two-winged bird was covered in dense scales. Its claws seemed to be forged from steel and suffused with a metallic luster. In the darkness, they flickered with a cold light. In particular, the terrifying aura of the bird made Zhuowen's expression change slightly. This bird's aura was not weaker than that of a middle-stage heaven-reaching master. Moreover, it was in the Forbidden Dead Mountain, an environment full of sword qi. This two-winged bird had a natural advantage. Even a middle-stage heaven-reaching master would have a high chance of dying in a battle with this bird. Zhuowen was very clear that if he was discovered by this two-winged bird, it would be a tough battle. There was even a high chance that he would be seriously injured. He might not even be able to kill this two-winged bird. Suddenly, the circling two-winged bird let out a long cry and swooped down at an extremely fast speed. The direction it swooped down just happened to be in the area where Zhuowen was. Zhuowen's expression changed slightly. His heart thumped. Could it be that the bird had discovered him? Zhuowen did not move. He stuck to the side of the depression and stared at the bird that was swooping down. The bird was getting closer and closer, 1,000 meters, 100 meters, until it was 10 meters away. Zhuowen's heart was in his mouth, but he still did not move. Asterisk boom. Asterisk suddenly, when the bird was 10 meters away from the depression, there was a violent vibration and a buzzing sound around the depression. Then, Zhuowen discovered that 100 Zhonglong python had soared into the sky and was fighting with the two-winged bird. Zhuowen's expression was ugly, and his back was covered in cold sweat. This python had been lying in ambush around him all this time, but he had not noticed it at all. In other words, if the two-winged bird had not appeared, the python would very likely have attacked him secretly. At that time, he would have suffered a calamity. Asterisk pung pung pung. Asterisk the strength of the python, and the bird was very close. Both had the battle strength of a middle-stage heaven-reaching master. As the two clashed, terrifying shockwaves surged out like endless waves. The surrounding black trees swayed as the terrifying shockwaves spread out, as if they would fall and break at any time. Countless leaves fell to the ground and were blown by the wind, fluttering in the air like fairies in the dark. Zhuowen kicked with his right foot and rushed out of the depression like a bolt of lightning. He knew he could not stay here for long. Both the python and the bird had probably discovered him. No matter who won, he would be the next to be dealt with. However, Zhuowen suddenly stopped when he was about 100 meters away. He had a strange look in his eyes. In the Forbidden Death mountain range, Zhuowen had met many powerful creatures and observed many of them. However, when these creatures met, they basically turned a blind eye and brushed past him. They would not attack the python with such a strong purpose like the strange bird. In other words, the strange bird must have attacked the python for a purpose. It was very likely that the place where the python was guarding had something that the strange bird needed. Given that the strange bird was such a powerful creature, the thing it needed was definitely not ordinary. Chapter 3197. Altar Boom. 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 The battle between the giant python and the strange bird became more and more terrifying. Large swathes of black trees fell, and black leaves swept out, forming a black storm. An earth-shattering roar exploded in the air, resounding through the clouds and breaking through the horizon. It was as if the entire Forbidden Mountain area was shaken by this roar. It was extremely terrifying. After Zhuowen returned, he did not deliberately approach. Instead, he stopped behind a large black tree hundreds of meters away and silently observed the battle between the giant python and the strange bird. He released the torch dragon's eyes vision to the maximum range and carefully observed the small depression where he was hiding just now. Soon, he found a clue. Dozens of meters behind the small depression, Zhuowen found an inconspicuous small slope. The slope of this small slope was very gentle. If not for the torch dragon's eyes vision, Zhuowen would not have noticed this small slope at all. It was really too inconspicuous. Zhuowen approached the small slope carefully. The giant python and the strange bird were almost in a frenzy and did not notice Zhuowen's approach at all. Of course, they probably would not pay much attention to Zhuowen even if they noticed him. In their opinion, this human was too inconspicuous. It would be strange if they paid much attention to him. Zhuowen approached the small slope and heaved a sigh of relief when he realized that the giant python and the strange bird were not paying attention to him. He stretched out his right hand and pushed aside the small slope. Immediately, a powerful medicinal power rushed straight toward him. The medicinal power was so strong that Zhuowen could not help but be pushed back a few steps before he could barely stabilize his body. Oh no! The moment the medicinal power soared into the sky, Zhuowen's expression changed drastically. Without thinking, he waved his right hand and put the divine herb in the small slope into the great world. Then he darted out of the purple river and disappeared on the spot. The giant python and the strange bird that were fighting stiffened at the same time when they sensed the medicinal power that soared into the sky. Soon, the giant python and the strange bird flew into a rage and stopped fighting at the same time. They chased after Zhuowen at the same time with eyes full of rage. Then the giant python and the strange bird chased after Zhuowen at the same time. A purple river appeared in the void, and Zhuowen's figure appeared under the cover of the purple river. His expression changed slightly as he looked at the giant python and the strange bird that were rushing over behind him. These two monsters are actually so fast. Zhuowen was really shocked. He did not expect that the speed of the giant python and the strange bird could catch up to his space-time power. This was unexpected. Zhuowen's eyes were solemn as he pushed the power of time and space to the limit. He turned into a purple, ghostly figure in the void, flickering constantly. However, what made Zhuowen helpless was that the sword chi here was too dense. The sword chi greatly hindered his speed, causing him to be unable to speed up at all. Boom! Suddenly, the strange bird with two wings flapped its wings as it approached Zhuowen. Suddenly, dense steel plume shot out from the strange bird's wings and swept toward Zhuowen's back like the sharpest hidden weapon. The steel plume exuded a terrifying aura and pressure, and its surface shone with a metallic luster. Zhuowen had no doubt that if the steel plume pierced his body, even the Panga sacred body would be seriously injured. Zhuowen stomped his right foot and forcibly moved in the air, barely avoiding the dense steel plume behind him. But soon, his face turned ugly because the moment he avoided the steel plume, his speed immediately decreased. The giant python that had been chasing on the ground seized the opportunity and leaped into the air. It opened its bloody mouth and wanted to swallow Zhuowen whole. Zhuo Wen's gaze was cold. The long purple river suddenly expanded and surrounded his body. The giant python's bloody mouth fell on the periphery of the purple river and was immediately affected by the purple river's space-time rules. Its speed was greatly reduced. Zhuo took advantage of this gap and pinched the void with both hands. At the same time, he used the sky-splitting blade and the heaven and earth dying together. Zhuo put the two blades together and formed a huge light blade. Then, Zhuo stabbed the giant python's big mouth with both hands. The light blade pierced the giant python's big mouth and passed through its upper jaw. The destructive energy exploded inside the giant python's body. Clouds of blood mist involuntarily spread out from the giant python's body. The giant python screamed in pain. Its huge body twisted violently in the air. Its thick tail was like a whip, swinging toward Zhuo. The air exploded, and the wind whistled. Zhuo's eyes were solemn. He stomped his right foot, and the purple river wrapped around him and disappeared, dodging the giant python's huge tail. However, Zhuo didn't relax at all. He found that the sky-splitting blade only caused minor injuries to the giant python's big mouth. It didn't hurt the giant python at all. Moreover, the moment Zhuo retreated, the strange bird had already caught up. Its pair of iron claws seemed to be able to tear through all matter. It grabbed at Zhuo's head as if it wanted to crush it. Zhuo punched out. Blood splattered. He groaned and fell to the ground from the air. The strange bird's body swayed and swooped down again. Its red eyes were filled with monstrous killing intent. Zhuo's eyes were gloomy. He took out the Yama demon portrait and opened the first layer of the Yama demon portrait. More than 20 ghost chains covered in black fog rushed out. Zhuo's soul had undergone several transformations and was much stronger than before. Therefore, the number of ghost chains he could control was naturally more than before. More than 20 ghost chains. Half of them rushed toward the strange bird, while the other half coiled around the giant python. Soon, both the strange bird and the giant python were entangled by the ghost chains. A shocking pain came from the depths of their souls. The strange bird that was swooping down cried out in pain. Its diving body almost fell. If it hadn't reacted fast enough and barely stabilized its body, it would have fallen to the ground. The giant python was also entangled by the ghost face. It swung its huge snake body on the ground in pain. It kept twisting and turning, looking strange and terrifying. Zhuo's face was ghastly pale. He endured the splitting headache and brought the Yama demon portrait to the northeast corner of the mountain peak. He had to get to the altar where the candle dragon's corpse was as soon as possible. He couldn't hold the strange bird and the giant python for too long. After all, although his soul was powerful, he couldn't keep using the Yama demon portrait. Zhuo held his forehead and staggered forward. He was much slower than before. Fortunately, the altar on the map wasn't far from where he was. About half an hour later, Zhuo saw the empty space in the center that was surrounded by black trees. There was an altar standing tall in the empty space. The color of the altar was similar to the void. If Zhuo didn't look carefully, he might not be able to see what the altar looked like. Crack! At that moment, the strange bird and the giant python had broken free from the ghost face. Zhuo spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was pale, and he felt dizzy. If he used the Yama demon portrait to trap a middle-stage exotic beast, he might be able to hold on for a long time. However, he had to hold back 2 exotic beasts of such a level now. Zhuo was almost at his limit. Zhuo staggered to the front of the altar. He held the top of the altar with both hands and performed the candle dragon's eye. A pair of huge eyes appeared behind him in the void, emitting a blazing light that was as bright as the sun. Chapter 3198, that the world inside the altar. The altar had completely materialized, and the complicated patterns on its surface were almost complete. Zhuowen understood the patterns on the surface of the altar. They were some kind of teleportation patterns. At this moment, the runes shone brightly. A strand of teleportation energy revolved around Zhuowen, constantly tugging at Zhuo when in an attempt to pull him into the other world of the teleportation formation. Zhuowen knew that the other side of the teleportation patterns should be the space where the candle dragon's corpse was stored. Roar! At that moment, a deafening roar was heard, and the ground shook violently. In the black forest behind Zhuowen, the leaves swayed crazily and fell one after another, sweeping up a strong storm. Then, the giant python shot out of the forest like a bolt of lightning. It opened its mouth wide and spat out a pungent smell, trying to devour Zhuowen. At the same time, above the dark forest, a giant strange bird spread its wings. It was even faster than the giant python as it swooped down toward Zhuowen. The two exotic beasts had terrifying auras and were filled with murderous intent. They attacked Zhuowen at the same time as if Zhuowen had killed their father. Zhuowen looked at the altar in front of him and realized that the patterns engraved on the surface of the altar were still glowing. It was obvious that it was still in the process of being activated. It would still take some time for the teleportation patterns to be fully activated. However, it was obvious that there was no time now. The giant python and the strange bird were too fast. They would not give Zhuowen so much time to prepare. Zhuowen knew that he had to delay the two terrifying exotic beasts for some time. Thinking of this, Zhuowen sighed softly and took out the Yama ghost picture again. The first layer of the Yama ghost picture was opened, and more than 20 ghost chains wrapped in black fog shot out. The moment the strange bird and the giant python saw the ghost chains, they paused for a moment. They had personally experienced the pain of the ghost chains earlier. The pain came from the depths of their souls. It was simply too painful. The strange bird and the giant python subconsciously wanted to dodge. Unfortunately, the ghost chain's speed was faster than the speed of light, and their auras were locked onto. The strange bird and the giant python were once again bound by the ghost chain. The giant python writhed on the ground, its scarlet eyes filled with pain. The strange bird, on the other hand, fell straight down from the sky. It spread its huge wings and struggled nonstop. It kept flapping its wings as it cried out in pain. Zhuowen sat cross-legged beside the altar, and the Yama demon portrait floated above his head. Zhuowen's condition was even worse than the giant python and the strange bird. Cold sweat kept breaking out on his forehead and back, completely drenching his clothes. His body trembled violently, and his face was unbelievably pale. As time passed, Zhuowen's eyes were bloodshot. He stared at the altar beside him and growled in his mind, "Why haven't the teleportation patterns on the altar been activated yet? If you don't hurry up, I won't be able to hold on any longer." As time passed, although the strange bird and the giant python were still in great pain, they had gotten used to the pain of the ghost chain. They actually struggled to crawl toward Zhuowen. Although they were crawling very slowly, the distance between them was constantly closing. Zhuowen's countenance changed drastically. It was already a little difficult for him to control the Yama demon portrait, let alone deal with these two mutated beasts. If the strange bird and the giant python were to get close to him, Zhuowen would definitely be in trouble. This made Zhuowen very anxious. He knew very well that if the strange bird and the giant python were to get close to him, he could only summon his original body from the great realm. However, although his original body's cultivation had just advanced, its strength was not particularly terrifying. If he were to come out, he would probably not be able to withstand the sword cheese in the surroundings let alone these two mutated beasts who were at the middle stage of the heavenly master realm. Zhuowen was anxious as he kept looking at the teleportation patterns on the altar beside him. It's finally done. After waiting for a while, Zhuowen felt that the pulling force on his body was getting stronger. He knew that the teleportation patterns had been activated. Asterisk boom. Asterisk at the same time, the giant python was the first to arrive in front of Zhuowen. Its huge tail swept over and viciously hit Zhuowen's chest. Because Zhuowen's attention was on the altar, he did not notice the giant python's approach and was directly hit by its tail. Zhuowen groaned and spat out a mouthful of blood. The Yama demon portrait closed again because of his heavy injuries, and the ghost chain around the giant python and the strange bird were withdrawn into the Yama demon portrait. Without the restraint of the ghost chain, the giant python and the strange bird let out a loud roar and rushed toward Zhuowen. They were infuriated. To think that they would be reduced to such a wretched state by a mere human. Once they caught hold of this human, they would definitely tear him into pieces and ensure that he was deader than dead. Seeing the giant python and the strange bird rushing toward him, Zhuowen's expression changed greatly. If he was hit by the attacks of these two exotic beasts, he would definitely die. However, he felt that the pulling force from the altar was getting stronger and stronger. In the end, it enveloped Zhuowen's entire body as if a large hand was squeezing Zhuowen. At the critical moment, just as the attacks of the giant python and the strange bird were about to reach him, Zhuowen turned into a ray of light and entered the altar. Bang! The attacks of the giant python and the strange bird missed and collided with each other. Immediately after, the two exotic beasts roared and retreated. The giant python and the strange bird cried out unwillingly. Their gazes fell on the altar that was still emitting light. They could clearly see that the beam of light that the human had turned into had entered the sacrificial altar. Roar! The giant python roared. Its huge tail swept over and smashed heavily on the altar. However, the altar did not move at all. It did not sway at all because of the giant python's tail. Instead, an ancient and terrifying power erupted from the giant python's tail and spread to its entire body. The giant python's scarlet eyes revealed a human-like fear. Then, the giant python fell to the ground and swayed violently. Boom! A muffled explosion sounded from the giant python's body. The giant python's body continued to expand like a balloon. When it had expanded to its limit, the giant python exploded into countless pieces of bloody foam. The strange bird was so frightened that it hurriedly flew into the sky. It looked down at the altar standing in the middle of the open space with fear in its eyes. The strange bird hovered in the air above the open space for a while before letting out an unwilling cry. Finally, it stopped on a towering black tree at the edge of the open space. Its scarlet eyes were fixed on the altar. It was extremely powerful and had already gained sentience. It knew that the human must have entered some sort of spatial world. Since the human had entered a spatial world, it was impossible for him to stay in there forever. He would definitely come out. The strange bird planned to wait for the human to come out. The godly medicine that the human had snatched away was far too important to the strange bird. It had searched for countless years before finally finding the godly medicine. How could it give up just like that? It was determined to snatch the godly medicine back from the human. Zhuowen felt his vision blur, and he realized that he had appeared in a different place. Under Zhuowen's feet was a boundless wasteland. In the sky above the wasteland, there were 3 rotating stars. This star was abnormally huge. In addition, the sky above it was dotted with specks of stars. These specks of stars were very far away and were much smaller compared to the 3 stars. Other than that, Zhuowen did not find anything else in the wasteland. Isn't this where the Candle Dragon's corpse is? Why don't I see the Candle Dragon's corpse?